me check my phone. Make sure once you come up on the phone, we should be good, I guess.
We're having a balmy heat wave out there. The sun's actually shining, and I think it might be 35 degrees.
Ha! Yeah, right.
Make sure you smile more, bro, Chacho.
All right. So I believe we're live. Let me see. Broadcast. Those of you who are tuning in right now, give us a thumbs up if you see us live right now. Let me double check. Hold on. There we go. There we go. We're live. We're good.
Call the IT guy.
All right.
We're good. We're good, guys. So let me make sure my chat. Restore the chat. Just be patient with me. I'm almost.
Actually flew some birds today. First time in 2 weeks.
All right, guys.
Yeah, fog's been in the valley.
Oh, that's always good. As long as there's no interruptions. Like I'm having some really bad interruptions right now in the skies. It's terrible. But everybody, thank you for tuning in. The #1 podcast, Birmingham Roller Podcast, that brings roller fanciers from all over the globe together. Roll call. I'm your host, Jerry Chacon. Today's co-host from Ohio, Gabe Glenn, 11 Bird Champion 2022, Mr. 702. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. It's an honor.
Our guest today, you know what, Gabe? I thank you so much for being on here because, it could get pretty tough and nerve-wracking here having one legend, and today we have two. So
my arm's still a little bit sore from where you guys kind of twisted it to get me on here. I usually like to stay on the other end of the films and just watch.
You can
keep you guys.
You can thank Rich for that, probably.
Yeah. But out of Montana, guys, our guest today, 2008 World Cup champion, Mr. Rich Hayes. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Lifetime achiever, Rick Schoening. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Jerry. Now that we maybe have some people watching this, and maybe in the future, my name is Schoening.
Schoening.
Not Schoening.
Okay, thank you for correcting it.
Not Shyster. not
Rick Schoening.
Not shithead. No, it's Schoening, like
Schoening.
raining.
Okay, Schoening,
So
guys.
all you
Everybody.
guys out there, I got some Shoney birds. No, you don't. You got some Schoening birds.
Schoening birds,
So,
guys. Everybody watching today. From now on, Schoening. So
there you go.
You will never get no birds from Rick Schoening. You say Schoening again, right?
There you go.
You don't know it. Schoening, they say.
Right?
Schoening, yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now, we got some good legends here. Two legends and 11 Bird champion here. Straight out diehard roller fanciers here, and it's gonna be a good chat right here that we're gonna have here. Rich, tell us a little bit about how'd you got started with the Birmingham Rollers.
Well, I had them when I was a kid, just like most guys do. Kept getting out of them, get divorced, get married again, get back in it. You know how it goes. And I just love them. It's the only thing I think about. I don't have any other hobbies no more.
Yeah, nice.
So when did you get your first roller?
I'm driving by a guy's house one day. I was doing my paper route, and I saw those birds. I had commies, in my little cage, and I saw those things up there spinning and rolling, and every day I'd stop by there. Not every day, every Saturday I'd stop by, and and one day he come out to the curb and he says, "You really like my birds, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, man, they're nice, He said, "Well, why don't you talk to your parents and see if it's okay? I'll give you a couple pair." And I was like, "Oh man, really?" And so I was like in heaven all day.
Nice.
And that's what I did. Started with that.
Do you remember that guy's name, Rich?
Yeah, it was Fisher, William Fisher.
Bill Fisher.
Bill Fisher.
This was out in California.
Yeah, I was in Downey,
Oh, in
down
Downey.
in
Okay.
California.
Okay. Nice.
And that
Yeah,
was in
there.
1955, I think.
Okay, yeah, it was a big area. I grew up in Bell, and
Oh, wait.
yeah, there's a lot of roller guys at one time, around those areas right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it by Southgate over by Bell?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Southgate. I
yeah.
worked for Fiesta Swimming Pool Company. That's where I worked for when I was older.
Oh, okay. How about you, Rick?
Well, my dad was a bird guy when he was a young man. And so one day he showed up with a box of pigeons for my brother and I, my older brother. And he said, I got something for you. I want to show you. And we had an old chicken coop. And so we go out there and lo and behold, here's all these pigeons in there. And I remember there was a pair of Chinese owls, black cockbird, I'll never forget that guy. And a pair of fantails, white fantails, a pair of homers, and a pair of rollers. And so I must have been probably probably 5 or 6. And I've never been a day without them since then. And of course, we had to wait 3 weeks. We had a big fly pin on there 3 weeks before we could fly them, my dad said. And we just were dying with anticipation.
Yeah.
Dying.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, can we let them out today, Dad? Can we let them out today? So when we finally let them out, the homers left, of course. They went back to wherever they were. But we had the fantails and the Chinese owls flying around in the rollers, the pair of rollers. And but they were just tumblers, they didn't roll. But they were, they looked like the birds of today. They were rollers. And but yeah, it's just been a passion of mine ever since. I'm a lifer, like Rich, like
Nice.
many of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you went through your stage of messing with the pigeons and just getting a passion from. Take us back to where you figured out that this was more than just having pigeons, the rollers, and that there was a competitive side of it. And then how'd you get into that? Who'd you meet that kind of you admired and was a mentor? If you could take us back to that era right there.
That for me or Rich?
I'll go ahead with you since I started with Richard.
So I in about 1966, my parents had divorced, and I went to live with my father because he bought a piece of property next to a river where I could have all my critters. And my mom moved into an apartment complex in LA. So it was a real easy who I'm going to go live with, right?
Yeah.
And so in 1966, my dad saw an ad in the paper, performing pigeons for sale in Rockford, Illinois. That's where I moved to. And so we went and met the guy, and his name was Jack Clark. And he happened to be the president of the Northern Illinois Pigeons Association. And so I started getting birds from him. And $1 a piece. He said, the reason he's charging me is because if I gave them to you, you wouldn't take care of them as well as if you had to pay money for them. I'll never forget that. And he had Chinese owls as well. He had blue bars and blue bar grizzle Chinese owls, and he was a national champ with those. And he wore the long white coat with all the patches on it, and I was probably nine years old, and just was awestruck with the guy. And so, every chance I could bug my dad, hey, can we go over to Mr. Clark's? Go over to Mr. Clark's. And so he got me interested in showing pigeons, but he used to compete. They used to have competitions. And in that year of 66, he talked about how his kit won their fly up there. And he said they kitted so tight you could put your hand up there and they would all be behind your thumb. And shortly after him winning the fly, they all got stolen. So even back then, that shit happened. Pardon my French. And so anyway, but he mentored me through learning how to show pigeons. We go to the Northern Illinois Pigeon Association. And so he was kind of the only real mentor I had. And then when I moved, came out to Montana, I was out in the middle of nowhere. And so APJ, man, that was it. And you know, pen pals, you develop pen pals, you wrote to people,
Oh, yeah,
you know, and I just always felt isolated. When I was 17, I saw an ad in the APJ that said 100% Bill Pensum family rollers, no show stuff. Hugo Bloss, Wellsville, Kansas.
Nice.
So boom, I wrote him a letter. And so he wrote back and he said, if you want to come visit, I'll sell you some birds. So the wife and I, well, the future wife and I jumped in my 69 Super Sport Chevelle and drove all the way from Illinois down to Wellsville, Kansas, and met Hugo Bloss, got to handle a bunch of the old Pensum birds, you know, that he had gotten from Bill. And so I picked out a couple of pair. Well, actually, he did for me. And so I said, how much do you want for them, you know? And he said, well, what do you think they're worth? I'll never forget this. So I looked at my wallet. You know, this is before credit cards, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, see, it cost me this much to get down here at, you know, 8 miles a gallon at 396, right? And I figured I got $17 that I can spare for those pair of pigeons. And he took them. You know?
Nice.
So anyway, so that's how I started with those birds, and they were looking at their pedigrees. You know, they were right off Bill Pensum bred pigeons.
Wow.
You know, I really lucked out with those birds. And so anyway, being isolated in eastern Montana, I don't know. I just wanted to get. I just couldn't. There wasn't anybody around, you know, to go visit. I fantasized about you guys in California that had everybody, you know, to go visit. And there was, you know, a lot of guys in the Midwest, but I just kind of had this passion. You know, Hugo Bloss, he convinced me that, you know, I need to be looking for the true spinning pigeon.
Right.
The hole in the side, as he termed it, hypercelerity roll. And a hypercelerity, I believe, is a Hugo Bloss term. And so that was, you know, I was over in eastern Montana in the 80s. So in, I think, 79 or whatever, Hugo needed to get rid of a bunch of pigeons. He was living in South Dakota. So I drove all the way to South Dakota in my wife's TR6, Triumph TR6 little sports car. We drove all the way down there. And she's still with me. We've been married 45
Nice.
And that's when I got my hands on a bunch of those birds, brought them back. And but Hugo was kind of my mentor, if you will.
Nice.
But the competition thing was, it didn't happen to me until I went to England in 1987. When I went over there in 87, I met all the greats, you know,
Nice.
and they were competitors. And so when I got back, I couldn't shut up about it.
Nice.
Monty Nebo, the Pacific Northwest International Fly was going on, and had been going on for quite a few years. And Monty invited me to judge it shortly after I got back, so I judged it, I believe, in '88. And the next year, 1989, I convinced them to include Montana and Utah, and I came in second. I took second.
Nice.
You know, so I was. So anyway, long story. Sorry.
Yeah.
But that's how I got started. Rich,
Nice.
your turn.
Rich.
Well, with me, mostly, you know, I didn't compete or didn't even know about that until I got out of birds, and my brother Dennis, he got into birds when I was out. When he was a little kid, he broke all my eggs. I was really mad at him about that. But anyway, I didn't know they even had a competition, and so I got back into birds, and that's how I met Rick. And so Rick and Monty Nebel was basically my mentors, and let's see, that was what in I'm trying to think when it was. 80. Oh yeah, it was about 86. I didn't get to compete for the World Cup. That's hence the master flyer deal.
Oh, you know? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I lost 5 years in that deal. So, yeah. But anyway, that's how I got started. Was with my brother.
Nice.
And then when I won the World Cup, the day after I won the World Cup, he got out of birds.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of sibling rivalry there.
Something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt bad about it. I don't know why he did that, but now I hardly ever see him even.
Nice. You mentioned Monty and Evo of being kind of a mentor to you. I know Gabe mentioned to me, he shared a little bit about when he went over there, and you guys were sharing some stories with him. Maybe you could share one real good memory with him, and
Roadkill.
just showing him some love.
There's two of those stories that will stick with me. They're probably tied for favorites. One was the roadkill, and the other was the stick with the underwear.
Oh yeah. When he'd come, he wouldn't bring a suitcase. He'd bring
a briefcase.
A briefcase with underwear, and when every day we take a shower, he'd take his underwear and prop them up against your house with a stick and let them dry that way. Funny story, but Monty was a funny guy. Well, I tell you, I got tons of stories. But
yeah, we could write a book, probably this stuff. Yeah.
But the one thing when I was flying my birds, he judged them the first time.
Oh yeah.
When I got first place? Yeah, I won.
Probably, yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Anyway, he would always tell me when you start breeding these birds, he says, "No, it's not all about the spin. It's about all the other stuff that's really important." And the one thing that he always said was, "See that bird right there? How it would spin and come out of the spin and just jet right back to the kid." He said, "Don't ever breed off a bird unless it does that." So that's how I started. And now my birds are really good discipline, and they shoot right back to the kid. So I was happy he told me that,
Yeah, see, that's where my downfall was. All I worried about was the spin and not all the other things like Monty talked about. Right.
Right. Yeah, mine kit really
I think
good.
as far as guys that have outstanding birds that return to a kit, I think both of you guys have really, capitalized on that for the depth that your birds have, Rick, to go back to the kit. It's pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, like Monty said, it's simple. I just pair two good spinners together that kit. That's how he made a comment like that.
Yeah.
That's simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us overthink things, and and I'm the type of guy that I hear something and I'll make a question out of it and post it, you know what I mean? And and you get different answers from everybody, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think that not one answer is right. I think all of them are correct if it's working for the individual, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it was George Mason that says you need 2 lifetimes to figure out these babies.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, really, I'm 65, Rich is 80, and we still ain't got it figured out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes it so exciting.
Oh yeah, it was an everyday deal. You just do it every day, and it was all boring. Like Monty used to say, remember? Boring.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't want to hear that when he was the judge because he'd tell you.
Oh yeah.
He'd yell out something. He'd go, 2.
Oh man. Hey, I'll be kind of nerve wracking. We're having Monty come over and be like, "Oh my God, he better do something."
Back, at least with us, he didn't because we were such good friends. But oh my gosh. So every story you hear about Monty and Ebo, it's true. Yeah.
Nice.
No matter how bizarre it is.
Yeah, how bizarre it is.
Yeah, nice. And both of you guys have pretty much put together your family of birds. I know, Rich, you got your hoochies and your in 5-star, I believe, and then Rick, you've imported the birds and from England and worked with them. Could you share with us how was it the process or how to create that project? What came together? What was the base birds for your foundation that created those families? And for Rich, if you could explain the reason naming those birds like 5-star and hoochie, where did all that come from?
Well, the hoochies, the band, I put 5-star hoochies. That's what I called it, But no, when I started with my birds, I had, they come from Kumaro, which is Houghton stuff, And so I had Higgins, Dave Goss, the Kumaro, and my foundation hen was Graham Dexter, and she was from the English Rose Bowl champion.
She was it, yeah.
Well, she was from it. Okay, yeah. But anyway, I just started working. The first year, I noticed that first I had some birds from Rick, and they weren't Rick's, they were a friend of Rick's, Gary Ferris. And
you can say it, they were junk, that's okay.
Well, but anyway, they didn't do a lot of rolling, they did a lot of flying, you know, and I thought, this is no fun. And my buddies would come over, I'd say, oh, watch this, you know, and they go, well, what are we watching? You know, and they turn their head and something would roll, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ron Phelps, some of you guys know about Ron Phelps. He came over, and one day he just shows up at my house, and I'm scraping and cleaning out there. And I look up, he lives in Spokane, Washington, and I'm in Troy, Montana at the time. And I thought, why are you here? What are you doing? And he said, well, remember those? He gave me some pigeons because I didn't have any for a little while. I got rid of all the ones for Rick.
The junk ones.
And anyways, I brought you some birds. He said, take the ones that I gave you last week, or he said he did drop me a few over, and just get rid of them. And I brought you some real deal, you know. And he got 8th in the finals in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And so I put pairs together. There was I think I had 6 or 8 pairs. And I raised them for that year. And I noticed that there was some really exceptional birds off of 2 pair. And so I got rid of all the rest of the birds. This is why I've done this a bunch of times, but I've got rid of the birds, and then I just kept everything that was off of the 2 pair. Then the following year, I crossed half brother sister matings.
Okay.
That was the second year. It was the 3-bird family. I had 2 cocks.
Oh, okay.
One from Dave Toss, one from Jerry Higgins, and then, of course, the Graham Dexter female.
Oh, nice, nice.
So
that came through Goss, though, right?
Yeah. Well, he went to in '89. He went to England.
Yeah.
He come back with the Rose Bowl champion, and then it got bred. And I got an offspring.
So we're doing a 3-way crossing right now, right?
Right.
Okay.
Second year, I went brother sister matings. I mean, half brother sister, and that turned out really good. So I kept doing that, and only for 2 years, and then I went to uncles, nieces, nephews, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that was working out really good. And I never did go. My brother, when he got his birds, he went mother, son, father, daughter, boom, right off the bat. And I thought, why? You know, to myself, because I thought I want to stay as far out as I can with it.
Right.
So I went the other direction, went further out. And it was 30 years ago almost. And and they just got better and better. And about the 12-year mark, they started catching my attention, like, wow, you know. And so I did that thing again where the best birds I kept and got rid of the rest of them. I've done that a few times.
Nice.
He moved forward much quicker than I ever did.
Yeah.
But that really brought it around, you know, because I could breed anything to anything because I hadn't got so close so quick.
Right.
And so that's what I did. Now I've got a cousin family, and it's all cousins. And you can breed. That's the ideal situation. You can breed anything to anything with cousins.
Yeah, it's totally different from what a lot of people suggest. You know, don't breed out the family, keep it pure as much as you can, and here you created something 3-way crossing, and
I never brought nothing in either for forever.
Yeah,
I mean, you won't need to, you know what I mean, for a long time, you know.
Well, I did. Mr. Gaber's over here. He brought me a present after I got him picked up with some birds. He wanted to show his appreciation, and he brought me over what I named her Gabby. It's a little
yeah.
It's a hoochie too.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
about 1/4 Hardesty. It's just a hoochie with a red paint job, more or less.
Nice.
Yes, I didn't have any. I had black and white birds. They were all painted.
Yeah, so this ash red ball.
Is there anything else you're bringing in other than his, like to start all over again, like you did, or you just gonna add that?
Just the one hen from Gabe. I'm down to about. I'm getting rid of some birds auctions coming up in a week.
Okay.
So I got rid of. I'm getting rid of most of my breeders because they were flying a little high, and I was having trouble with a hawk, and he was. I started to bring my birds down a little bit. I wanted like 150 feet, you know. So I got some of the Irish birds now, but I'm not mixing them in. But I'm going to fly them together because I want my birds. They're real compatible.
I got you. Yeah.
they'll stay lower, and I won't have any issues because seems like you get attacked up high with the peregrines, and I don't want to. So I have to shut down all the time, and I don't want to do that. So
Nice. That's a good way. I mean, a lot of people try to figure out how to bring the birds down. And that's probably work right there. Bringing.
Gabe helped me out with that. He says, I don't care how good a bird rolls. He said, I don't just get rid of it if it don't fly low enough, And then so that really got me to thinking. I thought that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so going through a little rebirthing here is all it is, But
I mean, that's part of the fun.
Oh yeah, that is fun. Yeah. They're on their first eggs right now. I just put them together. There's about 8 pairs. I think it is 9. And
nice.
And I've got the Irish birds together. So it's going to be interesting. I'm like starting the hoochies are just going to be like new hoochies. You know what I mean? They're not the same.
Yeah.
Same birds, but just I picked different cousins is what it was. Yeah. I found a cousin that the youngsters fly low. And so that's what I want. And
so why hoochies?
Why not?
I mean, why'd you name them hoochies?
He was stationed in Korea. I don't think he needs to go any further.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay.
Things you read back in life, that's how you name things.
Remember hoochie. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. That's good. How about you, Rick?
Well, okay, so I had those birds from Hugo Boss, and then I went down in 1981, I believe it was, to visit Joe Keyser and Joe Borges. Hugo told me I need to go see those guys, and so I went. He says, when you go down there, tell them you want up front pigeons, up front.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell does that mean? He said, well, they'll tell you. So anyway, I went down there. Joe Borges and Keyser just were great hosts, and I came back with some birds and excellent pigeons. And so in 1982, my stock loft burned to the ground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had Bill Penson bred pigeons in there, went up in flames. Howard McCulley bred pigeons, up in flames. Hugo Bloss bred pigeons. Keyser Borges. Oh, God. It was bad. My kit lofts were totally separate, so they didn't burn up. So I had the birds I had bred in 82 there. And but I was just devastated, like, holy cow. They're irreplaceable. They were literally irreplaceable. And I mean, the one Penson bred bird was right off the rear hen, right off a 3845, shit. And he was still breeding. He was a 66 bird. I just had 2 later J. Leroy Smith birds, and I'd shipped them down to Ron Dent. It's a good thing I did, because they'd have burned up.
Wow.
So anyway, I had made friends with a guy in Canada, Dale Guttormson, and he was a keen falconer, good friend of Herb Sparks, who's also a falconer. And Dale is a very keen pigeon fancier and falconer. I mean, he's top, world-class falconer. Anyway, so Keyser and Borges were doing the Ollie Harris import in 1982. So Guttormson had them all up at his house. I called him when my loft burned to the ground. And he said, well, why don't you come on up here and get some of these beautiful pigeons that without fancy pedigrees, as he called it. Because he had Penson birds too. He had birds from Herb Sparks and that crew, And so I went up there and I got to handle the original imports from Ollie Harris. And I came home with a box of birds that he wanted me to ship to a guy. I think Jim Lippincott is who they were going to. And one of them died like the next day. And these were Penson birds. And he says, well, take one of those, because he gave me 4 squeakers off the Harris pairs, 2 sets of estimates. And he said, well, take one of those Harris birds and replace it for Lippincott. I'm like, shit, man, this is mine, I didn't kill that bird, it just died. So I had to pick one and put it in a box to ship it, and it went to Lippincott. So I ended up with a hen off of the one pair of Ollie Harris, and then a pair of nestmates off another pair. And so Hugo Bloss basically disowned me after the loft burn to the ground.
Oof.
He just couldn't deal with it. So I never got a feather from him again. And so I kind of got pissed about the whole Pensum guys. It's like, piss off.
Yeah,
all right?
yeah.
The birds got from Ollie Harris, no fancy pedigrees. They're beautiful, ball heads, saddles, and they roll. Oh my God!
Yeah.
They spun fast and deep, and so I worked with those. That would have been, and then my friend John Huntington in England. We became pen pals, and anyway, he says you need some Barrett birds. And so he got a hold of Barrett, and Barrett got a hold of Abdul Elazadeh, who was living in Toronto, who had birds from Bill Barrett and George Mason. And they got me 2 pair. Good old Ron Kumro drove across the border to Toronto and smuggled them across for me.
Oh, nice.
What a guy, right?
Yeah, cool.
And so I get 2 pair of pure Barrett birds. And so I raised up some babies. That would have been in 84, 85. And it was the damnedest thing. I'd never seen pigeons roll when they come into land and crash like they did. I was dumbfounded. I'm like, what is this shit?
Yeah.
They were nice birds. They rolled nice, but when they come into land, wham, hit the loft, I'm like, Jesus. And I hadn't seen that with the other birds. And so I ended up, I flew them. Screw it. I kicked them out, those breeders, right? 2 of them were roll downs. And one of them, a little blue bar white fly hen, 2861. Holy shit, I remember that number. Nice pigeon. And then one of the cocks, the other cock was just like a 10-footer, nothing special. So ended up sending 2861 down to Al Luna because he had some mason.
Oh, here in Arizona.
Turns out that pigeon was bred off a mason cock. So anyway, so I crossed the only lone cock that wasn't rolled down from Abdul, crossed it on the one of the pure Ollie Harris hens, and I got some nice pigeons on the cross. And then so I worked those around in my birds. I still had some of that rolling coming in the land crap popping up, and so I just kept weeding that out best I could. And then moved over to western Montana in 1986. Went to England in 87 and did the video that you guys are familiar with.
Yeah, I have that video.
And brought back the Barry Shackleton pigeons. Brought back 8 pigeons, and 7 of them turned out to be cocks.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, damn, I wasn't gonna let them sit in the loft, so I crossed them right under my hairs.
Okay.
Yep. So I did it by necessity, not on purpose. Really.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have kept a straight Shackleton group and see how they would fly, And but then it was like everybody had to have some of those birds, the shacks, And Ellis McDonald hounded me, and so did many other guys, And be the nut I am, I share them with people. And so I just kept moving forward with the crosses. So the crosses, I sent one of the direct outcross to the California Classic that the year Vandenbroek was flying it. And she came in 3rd. And she thumped going out or something like the week before on the final judging that they did. So she lost points. But John told me, he says she probably would have been the top pigeon. And he ended up buying her. Yeah. But that was a direct Harris Shackleton cross. And so anyway, so I just kept working, Jerry, with those birds. And funny story, so I put together that the Rolling Thunder painting.
Okay,
I commissioned the local artist here to do that. And Joe Keyser wanted one. And he said, I'll trade you some young birds for that, for one of those prints. And I'm like, well, I'm no dummy, yeah. So he had a bunch of the old birds in rabbit hutches. He says, yeah, they're like the old stuff, the old Macaulay and Sparks stuff. He says, you can, I'll just let them pair up and hitch around. So anyway, he brought me 19 babies. He came up, and I flew them out, and oh man, did they spin. Oh, but they didn't kit with the shit once they started spinning. A lot of them
Yeah.
just go hard, and then they'd wander away. And ended up losing most of them in an overfly. I was flying them separate. I didn't fly them with mine. And but I did keep a cock and bred off them onto my Harris stuff.
Okay. Nice.
And I just 1 year, and then someone wanted some birds, and I gave them away like a dumbass, right? It was a red check cock. So when Vandenbroek was here in 2019, I was telling that story, and he goes, "You got the band number on that pigeon?" So yeah, I looked it up, and he called Keyser, and he goes, "Oh man," he said, "that's right off dummy." You know, these guys that know dummy, the dummy birds. You know, he says, "Man, that'd be worth a fortune if he still had that pigeon." You know, and so there's a little bit of that in there in my birds. You know, and so I know Vandenbroek's like, well, that's why they're good. They got dummy in there.
Do you know the history of dummy? Why is it a dummy?
No, I don't. I can imagine because he thumped the ground a lot. Is my guess, but I don't know. I don't know that story.
Okay.
I'm sure there's people are. You know.
Yeah.
I know Kenny knows about Billings. He knows about dummy because I think he's got some dummy stuff.
Okay.
And but anyway, so then, 89, 90, Byron Gables brought over a bunch of Les Bazance pigeons. And Les Bazance, Byron Gables' wife was a flight attendant and could get free airplane tickets. And so Byron, if you guys remember how Byron was, he was a wheeler and dealer. So he put together, well, him and Al Luna went over to England after I did. And they did a neat video. If you've never seen it, it's a neat, And so they brought over, I think Les Bazance won the All England Old Bird that year. And so Byron traded him airplane tickets over here to the States for that Old Bird kit.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So that's how that first importation of the Bazance birds got here. And I ended up with a couple of squeakers off of that. And two blue bar balls. And a friend of mine was here visiting, Gary Barris, and I was looking. They were the cleanest blue bar balls. I mean, no sooty, no dirty. They were just clean blue.
Nice.
Kind of like Brian McCormick's Irish birds, are clean looking blue. Anyway, so I let Gary take one. He took a cockbird, which turned out to be a cockbird, and the one I kept, I flew off. Sure enough, it turned into a roll down. It's like, all right, dumb luck.
Yeah.
So much for Bazance birds, right? And well. A few years later, I'm over at my friend's house, Gary, and I say, "Hey, whatever happened to that bird I gave you, that blue bar ball head?" He goes, "Oh, he's up in a kit right now. That was him right there. He's 15 foot, real smooth." And I'm like, "You ought to breed off that pigeon." Well, it turned out that son of a gun was a prepotent breeder. Gary developed a whole family of pigeons around that bird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I had an old pure Shackleton hen left. She was 9 or 10 years old, and I sent it to Gary. I said, "Hey, Gary, put that Bazance cock on that Shackleton hen for me," because he bred individually and used fosters. So he did that, and I got 3 babies out of that cross. So Shackleton Bazance, brought those in, boom, put them right into my Harris that I had been working with.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I have today.
Nice.
So the hen that came from that cross was a 2000 bird, maybe 1999, and so the pigeons are pretty much English based, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, but one thing that I was a pure Pensum fanatic when Hugo Boss was mentoring me. I mean, I could rattle off pedigrees like you couldn't believe. And I sit there and dream at night on how to pair birds up like Bill Pensum and Howard McCulley did in my brain. I mean, I was nuts. Still are. Still are nuts.
Yeah. No, I've been like
paper birds didn't roll over the shit until I got to Harrisburgs, right?
Yeah. No, I've been researching a lot of your older videos versus your newer videos, and you know, you could see a difference, you know, on the different like color patterns and style of the birds than what you had way back, you know. And yeah.
I was kind of wondering, Rick, you know, with the history of your birds and the birds you have now, the depth and velocity is outstanding. The performance. Does that? Do you feel like that represents what you saw in England and the English birds, or do you think that's kind of where you took the English birds kind of off your mentorship from Hugo Bloss?
Well, I'll tell you what. I never had a Pensum pigeon. I shouldn't say Pensum pigeon. I never had a pigeon from Hugo Bloss or those guys that were upfront birds off of Howard Macaulay, Herb Sparks. They could roll as deep and fast and smooth as those initial Harris birds that I got. And I was drummed in my head about true rolling pigeons. I think Bill McRae wrote an article one time called The Quest. It was about pursuing, getting the perfect donut hole champion spinner. And that's what I had to have or look for, you know. And I bred, the Harris birds bred a very high percentage of that compared to the pedigreed Pensums that I was paper breeding basically, which was a dumbass thing to do. And I'll admit it, it was foolish. The paper, you know, pedigrees don't mean much, you know. And so having that, seeing what those birds could do, the Harris pigeons were prone to roll down, especially when they hit those high revs. They'd lose it a lot of times when they were first coming into the roll. And so I guess the Shackleton pigeons didn't have that. The Shackleton pigeons flew lower, they rolled nice, but you'd never jump and shout and go, holy shit, you know. And but the crosses, there was some amazing crosses. I can think of them in my head, man. There were some amazing, just flat out F1s of the Shackleton era, you know. And so anyway, you know, your question is just, I've tried to keep that incredible spin with good depth in my pigeons, and with a good regularity that you can enjoy it.
Nice.
And so, yeah, that's been my driving force.
So you
that kind of opens it up. I asked you a question a few years ago, and the answer you gave me kind of, you know, really, it was one of those things that stuck with me. I thought it was pretty cool. You know, about how a method you use to ensure you keep the depth and velocity in your pigeons and the activity, because it seems like a lot of families will kind of go flat, you know, over time, and yours have, you know, continued to be at the top for the depth and velocity.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's why I was gonna ask you that, you know, as far as you say your F1s were phenomenal, and you know, did you see that consistency beyond the F1s going to further in generations within your crosses? You know, a lot of people would say, well, you can't go further than when you do a cross your F1s, because after that you just kind of like opening Pandora's box and don't know whether you're gonna ruin them or not. So they look at it like, if it's the hybrid vigor that's doing it. How do you feel about that, dude? Would it be just the performance?
When I went to England, right? So before going to England, I was a pedigreed Pensum fanatic, right? Pretty much. You know, I had just recently got the Harris birds, but so I went to England, and nobody kept their birds pure over there. They're always grabbing a bird from so and so.
Yeah.
You know, even you know, there's a story of Ollie Harris. Bill Barrett told me this story. There was kind of a rivalry between those two, especially after the last import from Bill Pensum in '66. There's a big story right there that most guys don't know about. And but anyway, so Barrett tells the story. I had a Texan come visit that wanted to meet Ollie Harris, and so if Bill would have called Ollie Harris and asked him to come visit, he'd say, "Well, no, I can't do it. I'm busy," or whatever. He just was always. And so anyway, the Texan gets a hold of Ollie Harris, and he says, "Yeah, come on over," you know. So boom, they go and you know, they live in those row houses, right? You know, those guys did, and Barrett didn't, but Ollie did. And so Barrett telling the story how he hid behind a tree, and the Texan, I can't think of his name, knocked on the door. As soon as Ollie Harris opened the door, Barrett slipped out from behind a tree and went up right behind Don Hastings was his name. Went right up behind Don Hastings. And he says, I look on Ollie's face was just priceless. So anyway, they go into the loft. And the first thing Ollie does is reach down and grabs a white hen. He goes, here's a bird I caught. Someone gave it to me of yours. Here, take it. So Ollie Harris was using a Barrett bird. And he didn't want it. He wanted it out of there because Bill saw it with him. So those are the two guys, that were. But everybody else, they'd go to the Black Country and get birds from Billy Herring, Elijah Tompkins, all those guys. They just, they were all none of this purebred stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of digress where I was going with that. So anyway, when I started working on my family, I'm like, well, shit, I'm putting the good pigeons to good pigeons, and based on their performance and their body type. And I've been doing that since the early 90s.
Yeah. And the next question is kind of based on that. So, when selecting birds for breeding, is there anything you look for other than performance? So right now, it's other than performance, color balance, body style, feather quality, keel. Do you handle your birds and grade them? What's important and why? It's kind of similar to what Gabe asked a question recently on Facebook. And it got pretty popular with a lot of answers on there. If you wanna let them know what was the question, Gabe?
Rich, you want to address
one on
that?
Facebook?
Yeah, that'll be going to Rich too. Yeah.
Good fast pigeons that don't have any problems.
What about physical? Like in the hand, is there things that you look for that you have to have, or
no? You got to remember, I've had the same birds for 30 years, so when I feel my birds, they're pretty much all the same.
Right.
Same color, same area. They don't, their kittings.
Either black self or black white flight, right?
Yeah, right. And that's pretty much the pattern that he has. That creates his pattern, his birds. So it just. It went to the point where, like, on Gabe's question on Facebook, a lot of people were like, it made it to where it was a type versus performance type of thing, you know what I mean? And I don't know, like with me, I kind of feel sometimes where, it like Rich said right now, his birds are all pretty much the same type. If the performance is there in a certain bird, but it's a different type, you start taking away from that type, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that will be important with the performance along the generations, to come.
I think one thing that I kind of found interesting about that question was, there's a group of people that feel like performance dictates type. And then there's a group of people that feel like type dictates performance. And it was kind of really cool to get everybody's feedback. And I don't think anybody's really right or wrong, but it seems like it's kind of a preference thing. I think people are onto their, they find the right way that works for them. But
that's why if you pick them from the air, you can't go wrong. I've had guys come over to get birds for me, and they want to go by the color, or this or that, or feel the bird, look at his eye and all that. And when you have a family that's really close, you pick them from the air. I've told guys that. One guy, I remember, come over and he bought a bunch of birds for me after I won the World Cup. But he picked them off the perch. I said, well, let's fly them so you can see what they are, Well, if you don't mind, he says, I just rather just do it this way. And it's up to you. But he wound up with a bunch of birds that were, I heard anyway, that weren't really great. I said, well, if you had picked them out of the air, it would have been a different deal. He just didn't want to do it. I just thought, well, it's up to you,
Jerry, to answer your question, what I look for, my birds are pretty dang set and condition and type. They look in the hand, they feel about the same. But my good friend Gary Barris, the guy who ended up with the good Bazan's pigeon, I ended up with the roll down that day, and he told me that, and he flew all birds from my family pretty much. And he said, what he has to look for, he said, Rick, you got to make sure that your hens have good shoulder width. If they're too narrow, you get some instability issues. And that's just with my little group of pigeons that he was working with. And the narrow-chested ones sometimes are your faster pigeons. And but he said he found that on the hens, he would do much better as a stock pigeon picking birds with good shoulder width. And so I've tried to follow that. I've kind of actually eliminated what we used. The Harrisburgs were kind of known for what we called a dart. They were narrow and long cast. I mean, some guys said, "Sheesh, that's a Donic." They were that long. And but boy, they could roll, right? Smooth. Yeah. And so I don't have any more darts, those narrow-chested pigeons, hardly ever, And so I've got a good type of pigeon that has proven itself that it holds up to the spin. Most of them, some of them don't, but most of them do, And it's interesting. I always like to try looking at other pigeons from successful fanciers, like Rich, and handle his birds, and then look at mine, handle mine. His birds have a lot of pearl eye. I don't have any pearl eye in my pigeon. I've painted myself in the corner way too many times. Guys are joking like, "Geez, Louise, you must like red bars." Gosh, Well,
yeah.
And I didn't mean to do that, and I just I didn't pay attention to keeping a lot of color diversity.
Right.
And so, there's always this part of me, I need some yellow, I need some recessive reds, and damn, I'd sure like to have some pearl eye and checker, right?
Yeah.
And
mine are mostly orange eyes.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Orange eyes, yeah.
It's used to pearl eye.
Well, you can yeah.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
He was looking at my Irishburg.
Yeah, the Irishburg's all pearl eye.
And it's funny how you say that because like sometimes like with me, it's like it's hard to distinguish a bird if they have the same patterns at times, and I know both of you got birds that have similar patterns. They're almost identical at times, but that's just sometimes.
I got 25 red bar ball heads out in my kid box.
Jeez.
It's like, what the heck, And so you paint them with the hairspray and all that crap, and but it's just what it is. I mean, I understand how bar pattern is genetically, transferred and checker and all that. I understand all that.
Well, when I first started my birds, one of the things I wanted to do was make sure I had some mixed wing and mixed tails, because that's automatic markers. I mean, it really helps a lot,
Yeah. Do you feel that once you get like a really tight nucleus within your family of birds, you really don't get oddball birds like a longer cast bird to where you got to worry about, man, this is a good spinner, but now this is a little different than what I have. Would you bring it back in, or or do you typically like get everything the same, produce everything the same as far as the body style?
I get some smaller birds maybe, and they're usually hens. My hens are smaller. A guy brought that to my attention one time. He got some birds, guy from California, and he said, "Your hens are smaller than your cocks," and I noticed that, Yeah.
That's pretty typical. My pigeons are very, very close bred. Not on purpose, but when you start, to quote Ken Easley, following that vein of gold, it's all going to come from the same critter.
Yeah.
And so I had a pigeon that I identified, unfortunately, after he was about too old to breed. He was a red bar whitefly. And I started noticing all these pigeons that were, grandkids of his and great grandkids of his. Holy crap, this pigeon, and he was only like a 15-footer, and but he was smoothing real fast. I had a guy, Clay Palmides was here one day.
Oh yeah,
Clay Pal, great pigeon guy, and he goes, "Man, what's that mealy up there?" Out of 40 pigeons in the air, he picked that pigeon. And anyway, he was a red bar whitefly. So I've inadvertently amplified that bird's pedigree based on the quality of pigeons that I select out of the air. Well, besides the red bar ball heads out there, I got a bunch of red bar whiteflies.
Yeah.
They all go back 2, 3,
Yeah.
And I'm looking at on the paper when I was doing my pairings, last month. I'm like, son of a gun.
Yeah.
And Gabe's seen my pedigrees. He knows how close these birds are bred, and so that's why I got all these bars, because they're recessive.
Yeah. One of the things I do is when I see that I got too much of one color, I pop these out. These are the how to pair for color, So when I select my birds for performance, I'm like, man, I got a little bit too many blues, so I gotta throw. So I look and see what pair will give me what, and it kind of works. I mean, you got sex linked pairs, you know what I'm saying? Because like I told you, man, it's hard for me sometimes in especially cloudy days, can't tell nothing.
I remember George Mason made a comment years ago when I was over there. He said he always clashes his colors. He said, don't ask me why, I just do, and so I try to put a blue with an ash red, but with the ash red, you get an ash red hen, and pretty soon you got ash red sons, and next thing you know, you got homozygous ash red, and they produce nothing but ash red, and it's like, gosh. And, and so anyway, that's why I keep a couple grizzles around. And
nice. Yeah.
I got spread, fortunately I got spread. And so I got lots of lavenders, and I get some whites because of the grizzle, and blue bar grizzles. But as far as body type, I mean, if the bird is doing it right in the air, unless they're deformed. I bred a bird a couple years ago that had such a short keel. I think, Gabe, you got to hold that pigeon where you could feel his heart.
Yeah.
He didn't have the bone there, Jerry. You could feel his heart right there.
Was that the drunk one?
No, not the drunk one. No, another bird. And but yeah, I mean, holy cow! They're obviously thinking it was a birth defect as opposed to a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we all get those oddball birds that pop out from time to time, and it just, I don't know. I mean, I guess a good way to deal with those is balance it out. Whether you got a larger bird, find the smallest bird or something. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
I think as your family progresses, Jerry, or anybody's, as they progress, they'll reflect your selection. I mean, if you like big pigeons, that's what your pigeons will be like. When I was in Ireland, I visited Austin Knudsen. That's our Attorney General, Austin Fox, and he had the birds from Morris Hole, and they were large. His hands were bigger than my cockbirds. And he said, well, that's the way we breed them over here. He said, we want them like that because we expect them to do a lot of rolling, and we want some good size out of them.
Right.
And so, they're all going to reflect your selection, and I don't think smaller is better or larger is better. I think a medium-sized pigeon is the way to go.
Yeah,
nice. Now, what about when it comes down to the performance? So, is there a certain style performance that you like to match up when pairing? For instance, deep to shallow, or high wing position to high wing position, or a fast deep bird with sensitivity and control to a very active bird, etc. What is your preference when pairing for performance to try to get what you are looking for, or better yet, the traits you have in your birds? So pretty much, like you got some nice depth. How do you keep that going without losing it, or the sensitivity? If you ain't got sensitivity, how do you bring that in, or how do you control the kit to be an outstanding kit like your World Cup kit, Rich, 2,000 plus points? You know what I mean? What do you do?
That's funny. I didn't want to bring up the World Cup because I'm, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging or some damn thing, but I can't help from thinking about this.
The regional kit was better.
Well,
Yeah.
it was. That whole kit was just good.
Yeah.
You know, and my birds weren't even a family like they are now, believe it or not. They were just, that kit was just phenomenal. But now all my birds are on the better level. But what was I going to say?
Well, how would you select? You'd select short bird, a deep bird, fast bird, wing position. There was a bunch of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, no, all the above. I mean, everything he said, you know, it makes sense, you know. But,
Like, you know, with me, Jerry, and I wouldn't use a pigeon that doesn't ball up.
Okay.
Period. If they don't ball up,
yeah,
I mean, if I'm seeing wings, yeah,
right.
Yeah, okay.
balled up.
You want your hair to stand up on your
Yeah.
neck, you know.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
If I'm short a cock or a hen, all right, and I need to use somebody, you know, wing position is critical, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And as far as depth, you know, George Mason made a comment. I respect George Mason. I think he's one of the finest roller pigeon men we have alive today. And he said, if the pigeon rolls deep enough to where you can assess it, that's good enough. And so when I look for pigeons for stock, if they roll deep enough for me to assess it, which is probably 20 feet at minimum, for me, I'm slow. You know, I know I can't assess 10 footer. They got to drop. You know?
Yeah.
And so, but I'll put two deep pigeons together. And I'll put, like last season, I put two 15-footers together just to see if I could shorten them up. They come deep.
Yeah.
And one of them, I probably think I wrote about it. He was rolling so damn fast. I just couldn't believe it when he came in. I mean, vaporized. Shit. And he came all the way down, you know, and I didn't know, I couldn't believe he didn't kill himself. And I rested him a little bit for a couple of weeks and reflew him, and he was up rolling. He nice, you know, 30, 40 footers. And in come that damn peregrine that terrorized Rich and I. And that pigeon went into a spin, and that peregrine was dropping down, chasing that pigeon, poking at it, trying to catch it. And that pigeon came all the way down low enough where I was able to use my scareaway devices, my shell crackers, and spook the peregrine off. I'm like, damn. So I go grab that red bar. I think, all right, I saved him, right? Nope. He had a hole poked in the ribs, and he died in my hand.
Gee.
But that was off of 15 footers, right?
Oh, okay.
And, I got that pair together again this year. I'm gonna try it. But the quality of roll is critical. And like Monty said, they got a kit. You know, they all above it. They got a kit. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. This story is about a bird that I was watching. Phenomenal, great bird. All of a sudden, a peregrine comes through and grabs it, hauls off with it. Oh, Gabe knows what I'm talking about.
I do too.
And he do too. Well, I thought, well, that's it. He went over the hill and gone, right? About 3 o'clock, maybe 3:30 that afternoon, I usually go in and shut my doors and close things up and check things, you know. And I heading out there to do that, and I look across my lawn, and here comes that odd side, and his head is the size of a walnut. It's about that big, and he's just walking home. He's walking home. He somehow got loose from the peregrine, and he must have rolled all the way to the ground and hit his head, or I don't know what happened to his head. But I walked over and picked him up. I thought, oh, I couldn't believe it, you know. Well, anyway, I put the bird in the cage. I left it in there for a week or so, and I reflew it, and twice I think it was when he rolled down. And I thought, oh man, it's probably not worth messing with him. Rick said, no, throw him in there with the hands. Let it be there as a cock. You know, you just throw it in there. And so I just kind of forgot about it. He was in there. Well, I thought, oh, there's that outside, you know. So he comes out of the cock pen. I put him in get him prepped a little bit for flying. And I put him up, and it's just perfect pigeon. I mean, he'll go 200 feet. Right now, I'm breeding off of him. Because he'll go 200, 300 feet, it don't matter. And he'll open up and just go over and land on the coop. But he has control, and he stops. And I was amazed that that pigeon's that deep. And
nice.
And He can handle everything. So I'm breeding off of it. I put him on I put him on that. It's another one that was in that white hen that was in my kit last year. That was,
one with the mixed tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Had the one white feather. Or
Yeah.
The black feather. I mean,
Yeah.
So do you guys feel there's a such thing as a multi-depth bird that can control whether it's 40 feet, whether it's 15 feet, if it wants to come to a stop for whatever reason?
Back to your question. I just see my damn dog got out. Oh well, I'll yell at him here in a minute. For breeding, I find that if you're having trouble getting enough frequency, enough depth, just enough, to get that motor going.
Yeah.
If you got a cockbird that's a little on the fence, maybe thumps once in a while.
Yes.
Maybe he's the dummy. I don't know. Crazy Larry. I've heard names like that. Right?
Keith, if you're hearing this, yeah.
But so I'll use a hot cockbird.
Yeah.
I won't use a hot hen because you just a cockbird that's on the fence that screws up once in a while, especially like as a young bird, as a yearling. If they got their stuff together, then. But that right there, I believe, is a real important thing to remember.
Yeah.
You can breed so much for control and safety and all this stuff, but then all of a sudden your pigeons just fly around circles and don't roll very much. And you're like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
You got to get a cockbird from somebody else that's kind of on the edge, and or one that pops up. Try that. That has worked many, many times for me over the years.
Right.
And, not around, just a guy that maybe's been in your hospital a couple times because he broke his head, right?
So this is something that a lot of people will be like, don't do that. Oh, that's a trouble bird. Come on, hey, you heard it from the manager.
Yeah. That was the question. That was the answer I was trying to get earlier when I asked the question: how do you keep the spin and the frequency? I remember you telling me that, and I've heard it before from other really good breeders.
Yeah. No, I think, you know what? It's happened to me, and I've tried it, and I get some of my best birds out of that, and I don't know why. And I'm, I really don't like to go out there and say these things because then they're gonna be like, look at this dude, don't even know, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I just don't want to hear it, you know what I mean? But
Jerry, I'm to the point where I don't give a shit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Amen.
Say, how many master flyer points you got, boy?
Yeah.
So, I'll throw something out that a good friend of mine, John Huntington, who invited me to England and hosted me and was on that video. Great guy. He's in the hospital now in England, not doing well. He's dealing with dementia. It's a sad deal. But John Huntington, I asked him one time, I said, John, is there anybody in England that doesn't have birds that'll hit the ground once in a while, coming out or going down? He goes, yes. They're called tip.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's got it. So if you don't have a pigeon that thumps the ground once in a while or you don't breed a roll down, I'd love to see a family that was competitive, like that didn't have issues like that.
Yeah. And so coming into your guys' like breeding season, what have you found with your experience that is the amount of pair that one needs to keep a nucleus in the family to breed from in a year? I mean, I've heard of people have 30 pairs, 25 pairs. What's you think that it's something that we should look into to keep the nucleus within the family of birds you're flying with?
No, I keep it lower now. I used to breed off of 15 to 25 pair, because I'm just nuts. But now it's like quality totally. And I'm breeding off about 10 pairs now, and that's just where it's easy. You don't have, when your birds as you build your family, you don't get you don't even have to cull very much. Everything changes, because your birds are just better now. So I remember when I was coming along with my family, he mentioned Ken Easley. Ken Easley, I was on, it was when Earl's list was going, and I brought that up and Ken chimed in with, at 12 years, I mentioned now my birds are just all of a sudden different. And he said that's when he noticed it. That's when he was more into rollers than he is racers. But he said the same thing. That 12 years is where he started seeing the real gel, where it really everything just jiving, And
Yeah.
that's what I've noticed about the 12th year. Now I've been at it for 28 years. The same family, no, never brought nothing in, and it's so easy now, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
So this year you're reading off a 10 pair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a total of 16 pair, but to answer your question, I think you need a minimum of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 to 14 pair.
Or 12. 12 is a good number. I
Yeah.
think. 12.
And I colony breed and I also individually breed.
Oh, nice.
Like I'm always got experimental stuff, and so the experimental stuff go in the individual because I don't want any, hanky panky going on in the main core birds.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
So, but yeah, I think you need, minimum of 10 pair, and you need to breed. I think you need to breed 4 rounds off a pair before you can really, assess their ability.
Right. Okay.
Less than that, I don't think you're being fair to them.
That's why I tell my brother. He would say, "Oh, I start off. I get 2 rounds, and then I change all the matings." Well, that everything everybody does is different, and it's all good. We love our birds,
Right.
but I find I want to evaluate 5 rounds. That's what I like.
5's ideal.
If you get 5 rounds, you evaluate them. You can tell what that pair is doing. Is it really working for you, or do you need to change up, or whatever? But
Nice.
that's what I like to do. Evaluate. Instead of changing matings and hoping you're going to get something like wow, just find birds that are doing wow,
Yeah.
and evaluate them and see if they do it again next year, and just upgrade them. Just kind of.
Yeah. So you're looking at about how many offsprings a year that you need to pump out?
10 or 12.
Okay.
Out of each pair.
Yeah, out of each pair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
8 pair,
Yeah.
8 birds. Like I buy 100 bands
Okay.
every year, and I use them up. And
Okay.
Rich
This
just use
year's
more.
different for me because I'm starting over basically. I got to have those lower flying birds. My eyes aren't as what they used to be. That's part of it too.
Yeah.
I want to
Nice.
see what's not rolling. And
Yeah.
And then for those of you, he mentioned Earl's List. Earl's List was the Facebook before internet. So it was what was it like? What was that like? A email or something? You had to have an email invitation or something like that.
it was pretty cool though.
No, it was good.
It was really good.
Yeah, and it was typical. You didn't go on Earl's after you've had a few to drink, man, because you could get in some good arguments.
I'll tell you what, experiencing the technology we have right now, and you having to go back to Earl's List, man, it'll be hard, man. Like it'll be like, damn. You'll take 3 weeks to get an answer,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, for right now, at the stage you guys are with your birds and your breeders, your family. Right now, so you just breed. Would you just do like a line breed just to keep things on the flow? I mean, I don't think there's any intention of seriously inbreeding now at this stage, would it?
No, Rick does different things than I do. I just breed now because I don't have to look for anything. I got everything I need. So.
Well, they're all related.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you keep a click pair together, or would you swap, the pairs around to see which one is the actual bird that's doing it?
Yeah, myself. If after a long time seeing consistency all the time, I marry that pair.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's no sense on searching for something that you already got it. So work on some other pairs that need work. That's my theory. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of having to remate differently every year, but I've had pairs that clicked really well and bred, 80, 90% A-class pigeons, and I put them back together and bred them in, another season, and that's worked well for me. And but like my pairings, they all have siblings or first cousins. There's nothing further. That's how close they are. And geez, and to try to keep your genetic diversity going with colors and body and everything like that, you need some diversity. You look at wildlife populations, it's what keeps them healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't medicate at all. I don't think Rich does
Oh,
either.
good. That's it. Yeah, I was gonna ask you that here soon, but
apple cider vinegar. That's I swear by it.
yeah. The more, so you try to keep it more of the natural kind of remedies or whatever,
Yeah, Monty was the same way. He had a sick pigeon, he killed it.
You kill it.
Yeah.
And then you don't get pigeons,
But we're isolated. We're 3 miles apart, which is freaking awesome, right? For a Montana roller guy, right? But we don't have all the influx of fancy pigeons coming and going. We don't even have racers coming
or
through.
a bunch of a lot of other people.
Yeah, we don't have people coming in our
like
lofts.
you guys in the cities.
Yeah,
you got lots of people all the time, and it's us. If we get a guest coming or something, we're all excited.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
Take him over for dinner there. He likes that. You know what I mean?
Right. But
we get real excited about that.
Yeah, so we don't worry about loft biosecurity much.
Okay, yeah. Like as a matter of fact, earlier today I was telling my wife, man, I'm getting sick and tired. The commies are starting to come down and hang out, and I go out there, they run underneath the loft. I say, damn, this is becoming a problem here, So biosecurity might be an issue here compared to where you're at. Yeah.
Like the last time I lived in Hawaii, the breeding loft I had, it was all wire floored, and they have those they have these big doves over there. I think they had a Chinese collared dove, and my dog was starting to catch them. I'm like, my dog catching these doves. Well, I finally grabbed one. I didn't want him eating them, he's a bird dog. Okay, he's being a bird dog. But I grabbed one of them, and it was chock full of canker. So those wild doves were going underneath my loft, picking up this, the stuff that fell through there, and they were getting canker.
Maybe that's why.
That's why the dog was able to catch it.
Maybe that's why there's no peregrines over there, because that prawns,
well, no,
the prawns, the prawns that kills the peregrines.
No, I don't think. No, the reason there's no peregrines, there is in the winter.
Jerry told me it's death on them.
It is. Oh yeah.
He's a master falconer.
Yeah. But anyway, so if wild pigeons are picking up underneath your lofts, I just thought it was interesting that obviously, that the canker is in your pigeons. Yeah. I've heard that and read that, and but as long as your birds are healthy, it doesn't bother.
That's one of the things that I kind of look for, like when I'm breeding. Of course, I select for the best performers, right? But I kind of like to do my very best to breed the healthiest pigeons with the healthiest pigeons, you know what I mean? Because I rather want them to fight whatever they got to go through, their battle of sicknesses or whatever, than to medicate. Because, I was on Jeds, Foys, looking for canker, looking for this. And, it's like, man, you're spending all kinds of money and half the time it don't even work. So I've noticed that by doing that, the birds are more healthier. And, I think so.
It's something else that going back to selecting breeders that Gabe and I talked about is fecundity. Like, I've got hens that I'll breed 14 babies out of this season. And I got other hens that'll breed 5. Whose fault is it, the cock or the hen? And I'm thinking it's the hen. And so I'm trying to look for things to improve the fecundity of my pigeon. And so if I have 2 hens that are both equal in the air, and one of them came from the hen that bred 14 babies and the other one came from a hen that bred 5, I'm going to use the one that came from the one that bred 14 babies and try to keep that fecundity going. And when you have such a close family, these are things you got to look for. You got to keep in mind.
Yeah. And log down to
I'll write it down, absolutely. And I've gotten sloppy over the years, lazy. I don't write down as much as I used to. I used to keep hip notes. Flew the kid on this date.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I found one of my ledgers and I was like, you're an idiot. I wrote down everything, but it was early in the game with my family.
Yeah.
It was things that helped me get to where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And that's something you I would recommend to guys to do.
Yeah, when I went out and visit John Bender, Gabe, you know, he explained something that he does within his breeders that I thought was pretty interesting, and he says that his breeders, they gotta pay rent just like the flyers. If they ain't paying rent, he'll kick them back in the sky. You know what I mean? And so my question to you is, would you introduce your breeders back into the kit, and what reason? Would you introduce it even though if it does produce, or what would you do?
I know Rich reflies a lot of your breeders, don't you?
Sometimes,
Yeah. I usually won't introduce them back in unless they've gone barren. The hens quit laying.
Okay.
And the cockbirds start shooting blanks. Maybe I'll try a bird that's a little distant related, and or say take a yearling out of the kit and try him, and then put him back out, and then see how the youngsters do. But it's I've got so many people wanting pigeons from me that I give them away instead of put them back in the air if I'm not going to keep them.
Okay.
And with the Peregrine, it's just too it's taking too big a chance. If it's such a good stock pigeon, you're better off giving it to somebody to use, or not, or just keep it. Don't fly it. And but as far as going back to the flying loft, our refly birds, every year I'll pull a couple out that I tried as an experiment or whatever, and they go right back. I don't have any issues with them going back, and I know Rich doesn't either. And you got to tell us about the South Africa.
Well, that's what I was just about. Eldon told me about.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. It's funny you mentioned that. Listen to this story. I found this to be just totally amazing. Eldon, when he was alive, he's been to South Africa twice, judged the World Cup twice, and stuff. He was talking to some guy in South Africa, and about reflying old breeders, ones that are fat, heavy, been breeding 8 years or something. And this guy told Eldon that the way to do that is to take those big breeders, like do a whole kit of them, find or at least 10, and put them in a kit box, and don't give them anything but water for 5 days. Just water, no food at all. Because they got so much fat on, they live on their fat for 5 days. And what happens is they go down, because I did this, I took a whole kit of these old birds, because I had some new stuff. I was really good, and I want to try it, And so I took all these old breeders, and I put them in a kit box. There was like 10 hens and 10 cocks. And they were like wanting to breed first and everything. And I didn't feed them for 4 days. I couldn't do 5. I just thought that's just cruel. And so anyway, at the end of the time, I just give them water. They just kind of went, they got into their same weight as they were when I stocked them.
Wow.
And when I let them out, you can believe this, but when I let them out after 5 days, they weren't even hungry. And these things come out of the box and look just exactly like they did the day I stocked them. I remembered the quality, the type, the roll, everything about them. And so I released about 20 old breeders I've been breeding from for like 8 years. And they went up in the air and performed exactly like they did the day I stocked them. And frequency, everything was exactly the same. It's all about weight. And that's what made me realize, not about age or this or that, about the weight. And when these finally got that weight off of them, they looked like a beautiful kit. And in 2 days, I had them cranking, breaking big. And I was going, holy moly. I couldn't believe it. So I tell it to everybody, because most people are probably going, all right, yeah, sure, but it's true.
Yeah.
Because I did it.
Yeah, that's what I went and visited Joe Rowe, and he was saying that, like, his older birds, he would just break them down, and then get them lean, and if I forgot what he was saying to what he was feeding, and I was like, I had that, I am like the vision, like the look, like, yeah, right, And he's like, "What? You don't believe me?" He's like, "You don't believe me?" He's like, "Let me put you on bread and water. See how fast you lose weight." I was like, "Oh." Yeah.
No, but it blew my mind when that happened. It was like I never saw none. I couldn't even believe my eyes, because then I separated the cocks and hens at 10 of each. I flew them the next day separate. They just got better and better, just like youngsters, And it was really, really an eye opener for me. I just couldn't even.
But a guy should be able to refly your breeders if you could.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you're taking a chance to a predation issue. But I mean, some of the finest spinning that you'll see comes out of 4 and 5 year old birds.
Right.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Just they have it together.
Do you feel?
They come down.
Yeah.
Everybody's the birds. They got the horns and they got the breast feathers all tore up. I don't see that on an old bird that often. An old bird has got his stuff together.
Yeah.
Doesn't usually. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because that they're mature molt. I don't know.
Let's talk about devil's ears.
Devil's ears. Rich is a big believer in it. I think so.
Gabe,
you two guys are too.
Gabe, he's got my birds, and he sees it all the time too. I've tried to tell guys about it. Was when we was on Earl's, and I got replies. People chime in and go, "Well, you must have crests in your birds," and they say, "Yeah, that's not. We don't." I said, "No, it's in the. Hannes Risawa, or I might have pronounced it.
Hannes.
He got second when I got first in the World Cup." And I was trying to explain to these guys that when you see the devil's ears, they're like little haircuts.
Yeah.
Oh, God, they go just back. It looks like putting pomade on your hair.
Yeah.
It goes straight back and like a little, like the back. And oh my God. And anyway, I didn't have no pictures because back then I didn't have a phone, And I didn't really show it to guys. And so Hannes, he chimes in and here's some pictures of devil's ears, and everybody just went because I couldn't provide it. I didn't have a camera phone.
Yeah.
About 4 or 5 birds, and they're all got their hair sticking straight up on the sides. It just came in and landed. It goes away after about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Back down. Yeah. But man, when it's up there, people just they didn't know what to say. They were telling me I was full of crap and stuff.
Yeah. I get that too.
What?
Yeah.
But again, sees it.
Yeah, no. You even get the split, split chest, and like you said, it's only a few minutes because I'll even see my birds when they come down with their beak, they start combing themselves back. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
No, but the devil's ears we're talking about, nobody's even seen it. And here's what we figured it out. Me and Hannes and a couple other guys, we finally figured it out. And it's about not just the speed. It's not just a fast bird. It's a well-balanced bird. It's a bird that has no wobble, none. I mean, it's so smooth that they have no wobble. And that's where they get the devil's ears. Because if they have any kind of wobble at all, it don't show.
Yeah. Or they get only one,
No,
pretty much too.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? You see it.
Yeah. It seems like it's definitely in your family, and I think there are some birds that seem to spin really well and really fast and balanced, and maybe don't get it, but it definitely like with my birds, if I have a couple black white flights out of about 40 that are really just burning it up, they're pretty easy to pick out. They got the devil horns, so it helps me really to kind of identify. It's really hard identifying birds. I think it's a big part of the game.
Yeah, and I feel like you said too. It's not necessarily has to do that it's a fast bird, because I see some that are just as fast and don't get it. Yeah.
Yep. The balance is what I wanted to comment on. Was like Gabe was saying about the balance. That you can't see a wobbly bird. I mean, you won't see it, but it's there. And the only time you're going to get ears is when there is no balance issues. It's maybe some birds just don't have the perfect thing to make it happen, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's their balance and their speed, combination of both, and that's when you get devil's ears. And I usually get more in the winter than I do in the summer. I notice. I don't know if it's the air moisture content or what it is.
Yeah, I've had people when I've posted pictures of my birds that have that that's the moat or whatnot, and I'm like, man, I get it either when it's the moat's there or not, you know what I mean? So, but you could only make someone believe, so much, like, yeah, but
well, most guys they just thought we were full of crap. They just didn't even want to acknowledge it. We're saying they don't have fast birds. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
They're just causes it.
Yeah.
And it looks just like their hair is combed with a real fine.
It's like if you get a palm brush like this one, just
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Because they're just it's neat. It's just a beautiful thing to see.
Would you
down, you got with it.
Yeah. Would you bring in a young bird that's just straight out badass, would you bring it in the breeder loft that year, or would you let it mature?
I'll bring mine in a day.
Oh yeah.
If I saw 2 birds this year just from their first time I saw them roll. I just went and then I've done it before and it works, and I wouldn't say everybody should do that or could do that, but it's probably a lot of it's because I haven't brought in a bird for 28 years, period. Other than the one from Gabe just recently. Yeah. That was a great present. Thank you, Gabe. I love that bird.
What? Go ahead.
She's on eggs.
And what is your preference on feeding the breeders? Do you go with like a mix or pellets or?
What do you feed them?
Oh, I just feed mixed grains.
Oh, mixed grains.
Yeah, I feed my breeders. What I've been doing lately, because the price of feeds has gone so high, I get what we call a custom feed mix, and I add a little of this, a little bit of that. It comes with almost no wheat. In fact, no wheat. So it's really cool because I can take like 4 scoops of my custom mix and put in a scoop and a half of wheat, maybe a little bit of corn, if it's depending on what you can just build it the way the weather dictates.
Nice.
Yeah, I use mixed grains as well. Over the years I've used chicken pellets in a separate container that if the breeders wanted to eat it they could, and it definitely raises fatter youngsters, more healthy youngsters. I think it's easier for the parents to regurgitate the pellets, and I've never been fortunate enough to get my hands on some real Purina, pigeon chow, and one of the downsides living out here in Montana, you don't really have that access. And but yeah, I would, if I could get myself hands on some real pigeon pellet, I would provide it in a separate container for the breeders, along with the mixed grains. Yeah.
Now, what do you think about grit and pellets? Because they say not to do that because of the salt content.
Yeah, I've always just kept grit away. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, grit is like the minerals, right?
Yeah.
So I've heard it's very important to always have that for breeders. Yeah.
Yeah, but like Rich was saying, a lot of the pellets have grit mixed in it.
No, they've got salt.
The salt.
Okay.
The salt. Yeah.
So their stool looks like a big gob of smelly. It's really smelly, but they're. My brother used to when he was flying with. We go over to his house and he say, "See, my babies, they're all fat, big, and healthy looking." I said, "Yeah, they're a lot better. Mine aren't quite that way, but in about 2 weeks, that all goes away. The baby fat goes away, and mine look just the same as his did." That's something I noticed too.
He's not eating them. You're not breeding them to eat them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fellows would be good. For squaw.
Yeah. So on the point. You bred your offspring, you weaned the birds, you start flying them. From the point that you start flying your pigeons, your young birds, what's the period that you give them to want to see performance to come in? Do you want early development, or will you give them a chance for late development? And if it's late development that you give them a chance, would you breed for that? I mean, would you breed off that bird? I mean, what do you prefer?
I like having both. A little bit late, a little bit early.
Yeah.
Not a bunch of early birds, because I've heard a lot of rumors about early birds or birds that they don't hold up very good. If you give them both. You can mate, you know, a late developer with a like if you got a really hot hen that's just smoking and comes in early, you don't want to put another hot cockbird on her. You want to put a late developing, you know, faster eater bird so that the youngsters get a chance, you know. So
makes sense.
I like my pigeons to come in by 12 months.
12 months.
You know, if I have space, if I have a bird that isn't rolling, I'll, you know, if he does everything else right, I'll give him another, you know, 3-4 months. But would I breed off that pigeon? Probably not.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did use a hen. Actually, Gabe's got a hen off it that came in like at 16, 17 months. And it's just one of those birds that I kind of forgot about, a blue bar badge. And she came in late, but she was very, very nice and made it to the stock loft, you know. And that's the exception as opposed to, you know, like the birds, like Rich and I got pigeons on eggs, and they're dropping eggs now. Okay, so by fall, you know, October, November, we're going to want to see some rolling,
Right.
you know. And with me, with my birds, if I don't have pigeons developed into the spin, when our days get too short and there's snow on the ground, my pigeons kind of go to hell. When they haven't developed it, they have trouble with the snow. And I'll never forget Bill Barrett calling me an idiot because I told him I flew my pigeons over the snow. And he said, well, then you're an idiot. Just like that. You argue with Bill. And I think there is something to be said for it. But in Montana and the northern climates, we don't get to fly, you know, in the winter if we worried about snow on the ground. And so I'd like my pigeons to coming in, you know, before winter. But if I breed a couple late rounds, I'm stuck with them, you know.
Yeah.
Those June hatches are going to have to come into the roll when there's snow on the ground, short daylight, and there's a difference.
Yeah,
with my family.
Mark Ritter sent me a picture one time with the snow, and you just see the wings and the body of the bird inside, like a hole in the snow. And he goes, "This sucker rolled down on the snow, and all you could see is a hole with the pattern of the wings like that."
They die in there. They can't get out.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Do you think they have a problem in the snow because they can't tell the sky from the ground, like contrasting colors or spooning? You think they see the ground?
This is what I was going to talk about, but for a second, I had a hand that I had a pair that everything they produced was 60 or 80 feet, a little bit deeper than what I liked, but they were stable. So I told Rick about it. I got a white hen. She was outside. I said, she's going 10, 15 seconds. And so he wanted to come over. He brought Virgil over, and they came over that morning, and I flew them. And as soon as she rolled, I said, yeah, that's her up there. They were up there about 400 feet. And she starts rolling. I said, that's her. And Rick started automatically. He didn't even say he's going to do it. He goes, 1001, 1002, all the way up to 10. And at 10, it would stop. But so I walked over and picked it up because it was around their side. I knew
it stopped because it hit the ground.
No, it didn't. It landed on the ground. And the snow was about 2 feet deep, and Rick goes, man, he says, he's not even excited or nothing. I said, yeah, he's not even wet either.
No, so it just landed on the snow.
Yeah, it landed on the snow, but it'd do that all the time, and I forgot it was in there. It would always stop, but I forgot it was in there. And one day we got like a big snow, about 18 inches, and she must have been in the kit. I just didn't think about it, let it out, and never saw her again. So she must have rolled down and buried herself.
Yeah,
found by a lawnmower somewhere or something, late in the spring.
Would you fly your young kits every day, or does it matter? Like, what do you see?
Well, until they start rolling good, and then I go to every other day. Rick, he flies his no matter what. Yeah. Mine just.
My pigeons have been selected to fly every day.
Yeah.
And if they don't get to fly every day, even the ones that are rolling hard, that's when they get roll buildup, especially as young birds.
Yeah.
And then say if you have horrible weather, or if you got to go out of town for 3 or 4 days or whatever, come back. That's when I'll have some instability issues. Whereas Rich's pigeons by far are way more stable than mine. I've noticed over the years. And my birds, because he lets them out of it. His kit boxes are low to the ground, and they have to come down and land at about 5 feet maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They land on a 5-foot roof off the ground. And if there was any stupidity there, they were going to thump. And I don't see it hardly at all at Rich's. Whereas my loft's a pretty tall loft, and they'll screw up if they've been like if I let my kid out, a hot kit, and they've been chased by the peregrine and they get in this fast flying mode, especially as young birds. And if they don't go up and start rolling, get up high and start changing directions and start rolling, and say they come down in like 5 minutes or 8 minutes and they've been just flying around like that, when they come in, they'll break, they land on the roof, they'll hit the freaking ground.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah. I have that same problem. Yeah.
Is it a roll buildup?
Well, it's a roll buildup. They got to get it out of their system, and my birds have to do that. I like to see roll when I let my pigeons out. I don't like birds flying like pigeon birds. All right, they got to go up and roll.
Yeah.
And I'm addicted to roll, as Rich says.
Yeah, he is.
I gotta see it.
Yeah. Do you fly your competition birds, like whether or not it's prior to competition? I mean, do you fly them like the same time, like as far as with your younger birds, or do you stock them before competition? You only fly them, do so.
Get out of them. I fly them too much, probably.
Okay.
If I was to manage my competition kit better, I'd probably do better. But it's like, oh shit, they're going out. I'm gonna see them, and I'll give them a day or two rest before fly day. But up to then, they're flying every day, And if I have yearlings in there and 2 and 3 year old birds, that's where I probably make a mistake. I shouldn't be flying them that often, but I don't have any issues with them landing or going out the door when they're flown regularly. It's the irregularity of their training that causes instability with my pigeons.
Okay.
And that's not everybody's business. That's just my pigeons.
Yeah.
And it's and these guys that keep their teams together for months and months and months and then get them ready to fly for a competition, 3 weeks out. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, if I did that, I'd probably put up some hellacious scores. But I got it. Well, why feed the bastards? I got them to watch them roll.
Yeah. That makes sense, man. That makes sense. Yeah, like me sometimes I'm like, I get the itch for like, man, I'm gonna let them out. I don't care.
They're going out, man.
Yeah.
It's like Rich, he said, this is what I do. Pigeons, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And so I got this new job, right?
Oh yeah.
I had to judge, and but it's not a retirement gig, damn it.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping
You went from a part-time
I went to no job.
I was scratching his head going, how am I going to fly birds? Like,
It's a 4-year term. So I'm a working stiff again.
Yeah.
And so it's really going to be interesting. I won't be able to fly my pigeons as often as I normally would.
Yeah.
When I was a board, man, I set my own hours. I didn't have to work when the
Yeah.
And, it's going to be interesting to see if I can even put up a competition kit.
Yeah. On when it comes down to your competition kits, do you separate cocks and hens, or do you fly them together and separate them, or just keep them housed together? What works best for you? Starting with Hayes.
Yeah, Rich likes to fly a hen kit and a cock kit. Yeah. Oh. I'll fly a mixed kit, but when they come down, I separate them. Because our main flies are in the spring, our wool cop, and that's when the days are getting longer and they're getting horny and they want to go.
Yeah.
And, if you're not careful, you'll get an eggy hen and you'll lose her, because she prolapses or whatever. And most of my hens are thin enough that they wouldn't lay, but it's just Murphy's Law. It happens. And so as I'm coming up, prior to getting the kit ready for competition, as yearlings and old birds, they're definitely flown separately sexes. But when I build a team, I'll do cocks and hens together.
I'll do that sometimes too.
Yeah, I put my best eggs in all in one basket.
Yeah, nice.
And if they have to be cocks and hens, then that's just it.
Nice.
And so, but they're much easier to manage same sexes because hens need less than the cocks do.
That's right. Separate housing works really well.
And so like when I fly them as a mixed kit, when they come down, as they're all gobbling up the food, the ones I'm pulling out are the hens because they need less.
Yeah.
I'll pull them out in another pen. I don't grab the cock. I do because the cocks are just gobbling away. And it takes me, more management, but I think you can fly better teams that way. But Rich has flown some phenomenal one-sex kits over the years. I mean,
nice. Yeah, and if you keep them housed too, like together, or you keep them separate, they don't pair up too. That might affect the way they act in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
In the loft setup I have, some of you guys have seen it or not, the pigeons, they all go out the same door and they all come in the same door. And then they go to their separate sections, whatever door I got open up inside there. So it's easy for me to do that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Whereas some guys have got, like Rich, it takes more effort to separate them. Because he can, as he's trying to grab them, it might fly over his head or whatever. And so it's really easy for me to do that.
Nice.
So
what a nice setup.
You got to have the right setup.
Rick's got a nice setup. When they come into Sputnik, they drop into the main floor. There's what is it? 6 on each side? No,
four
on each side. And he can just open one of the doors, the one he wants them in.
Yeah.
And it works perfect. He can send them anywhere he wants, and it's really cool.
From the inside, huh?
Yeah. The inside have all the different sections.
So when I'm out there feeding in a snowstorm, and sideways snow coming 100 miles an hour. Think about Rick. I'll have some more coffee.
Yeah. What is your main kits consist of on the age? I mean, are they mostly all older birds or like yearlings, or what do you?
Well, unfortunately for me, in the spring I'm competing with mainly coming yearlings.
That's what I like to compete with. Yeah.
And I might have, if I haven't given them away to people, I might have 4 or 5, 2-year-olds in there. But no, it's usually upcoming yearlings. Heine Biker told me, he said, I've judged your pigeons 3 different times, Rick. You don't need pigeons from me. He says, what you need to do is discipline yourself to build an old bird team. Don't give them away. Keep them. Mm-hmm. And so to answer your question, I'm usually competing with coming yearlings. And in the fall, I will compete with those same birds, and then I'll have a young bird team.
And they're better than in the fall. That's the same with me too.
Yeah.
I have one last question in the competition birds. Prior to competition, walk us through your training and feed program, and to get your birds peaked and ready for the day of the competition. Either one of you guys can start.
Well, as far as the feeding goes on the young birds,
feeding and fly time, whatever.
Oh,
for competition.
The day of competition, prior.
And then just juice them a little bit up. Gabe knows what I'm talking about.
No one else does, though. No. He's like, what?
We're supposed to mention the J word.
I remember. Oh, you'll love this. So, Jerry, you've probably got the video. These guys have seen my video in England. So we're interviewing Graham Dexter, and he's just been sicker than a dog. And John Huntington asked him a similar question, right? And Graham looks at him and goes, "What, for free?" Just how I train my pigeons for free.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you could give us a little bit of the secrecy. You know what I mean? If you don't want to go the 2 weeks, just give us the 1 week prior.
I know what Rick was talking about a while ago. If a guy starts prepping them too early, you're kind of messed yourself up. I found that I was doing that, and I run into trouble. I almost peak them a little early. So I started backing off on that, and it works a lot better now. I give them about 6 days on pure wheat, and just fly them, just get them really roll fed.
And this is hard wheat.
We're
talking hard wheat, not soft wheat.
And then I just change the feed a little bit, give them some more protein, or
Well, you used to do the stretch.
Yeah, I used to do the stretch. I've been thinking about that. I haven't tried it.
Explain the stretch to them.
Well, the stretch it's something I used to do back when I first started, and I think Rick said I won 85% of the flies.
Yeah.
In those days,
using the stretch.
And what the stretch was for me was you feed them all they could eat. I mean, but first, here's a mistake I made a few times, and that's why I got away from the stretch. Was I didn't have them in the right condition before I fed them all they could eat. So in other words, their bodies might have been a little fat or something that affects the stretch. The stretch, you got to have them.
It's okay. It's just horse.
Oh, the coyote.
No, it's my German Shepherd, not a coyote.
Anyway,
coyote, get the gun! Oh shit! No.
But anyway, I've learned now to get them into the condition before you would do the stretch, and that's what I was doing. But it was all by accident because I was leading them out a little bit. But then don't feed them for. You give them all they could eat, and don't feed them for. I was going 55 hours with no feed, just water, and oh man, one after another, big explosive breaks, and they're just like bam, bam. I mean, just like really.
Well, there was no busy work in between. I can remember watching his kids. They just come out, rhythmic flying, slow wing beat. I'm like, oh God, he's gonna kick our butt again. And yeah, oh my gosh, and yeah.
But that was a stretch, and I lost the stretch somehow in my breeding because I tried it, and I thought, what's going on? But I figured it out. I didn't really lose it. I think what it was, I didn't have them in the right condition
to begin with.
Yeah. And so their bodies were a little bit too fat, just a hair. And then when you feed them all they could eat, it puts them over the edge just a little bit more. Gabe knows what I'm talking about.
So you hold back on them. You said like 55 hours. That's prior to the day of the flight.
Right.
Okay.
See, they went from a completely full belly.
It's crazy.
They're cropped up, and then just nothing, just water. And then at 55, and I was actually considering 60 because they'd fly for another hour. Afterwards. Remember when Heine was there, and he goes, "Look, we're going to have another." A new it was the
new winter.
A new winter. I would have wanted it again, but what happened was as soon as Heine opened his mouth and said that, it was like somebody just turned the switch off.
Oh, man.
And they just.
That's right. I remember that.
Remember that? Heine goes, looks like we're gonna have a big new winter here, because I only need.
That was in Troy.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
And as soon as he said that, it was like somebody turned the switch off.
Oh man, he jinxed you.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I thought, why'd you say that for?
That was the first.
Right.
Yeah. No, Jerry, what I do, and I used to really be a fanatic about getting birds on the condition. You watch that old video of mine. John Huntington talks about birds being roll fit, and what that is, a pigeon. You look on a perch, they're kind of humped up. They're not look like they're sick. They're just kind of humped up.
Slightly humped up.
Yeah. And when we were down at the convention in Boise, Kenny Billings, great pigeon guy. He just moved to that place, handed pigeons out 10 different times they're at that place. When I looked in his kit boxes, I looked at those pigeons and they were roll fit. I'm like, Kenny knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
And so, and sure enough, they came out and they rolled their butts off. You were there. Yeah. You remember that.
Yeah.
And they were roll fit. And so I used to really try to get my pigeons, my competition kit, to that roll fit level. Unfortunately, numerous times, about 4 or 5 days before fly day, I'd lose the whole kit. They'd get a fly off, because I'd have them so balsam wood, feeling hard as a rock, but they didn't weigh anything. Yeah. And we'd get a goofy weather. Montana has really weird weather here. And boom, gone. They come down the next days in 2s and 3s, and then your kit's junk, And I would hone them down on the Milo. I'd take a healthy pigeon flying, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, and then start whittling them down every day with the Milo. And that'll get them in that roll fit condition. But you got to be careful. And so I I haven't done it in the last few years, and I've tried to pick a team with pigeons that I don't need to get them in that roll condition. Birds that just roll their butts off when they're supposed to, and still be in good shape. But thinking back, or in the future here, I mean, if I need to get back to that program and get those birds on that roll fit, but you can't do it with young birds. Young birds will fall apart.
Yeah, I noticed that. I tried to do that. And man, they went up for 4 minutes. They landed, but they broke. They were just da. They couldn't elevate, and they just landed. And I was like, what?
What I've always considered roll fit was different.
Yeah.
Now roll fit is like, now say your birds you've been not flying, wind, snow, whatever months, maybe something bad, Roll fit to me is when you start flying the birds, because they don't roll when they're that condition. They're just flying, because they're bigger, fatter, they won't roll. Roll fit was always told to me that was when you fly them for 8-10 days, and all of a sudden you start rolling. Now they're becoming roll fit. That's how I presumed roll fit was. So when you said that, I knew what you were talking about, but I'm thinking, I always heard roll fit being a little bit different,
Yeah, and that was a term that John Huntington told me about, roll fit.
Okay. Roll fit. Yeah. I'm gonna have to pay attention to that video. I know I have it somewhere. Let's get into a little bit on judging. This is a topic that I feel that needs to get out there more and to get more knowledge on a lot of people to kind of feel comfortable in judging. Let's start off with the multipliers. How would you determine quality and depth, and how would you analyze the ranking 1.0 to 2.0?
Well, if you ask me that, I've always been an advocate of, instead of 1 to 10, I think it should be 1 to 6. No more than 10, no more than 6, and just 1 for. But that's always been what I thought should be instead of, there's too many numbers there. Is that one a split hair better than this one? You know what I mean? It's like,
well, then you see guys that score 1.379. I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's ridiculous too. That's exactly right.
But
no, I agree.
Well, okay, so Jerry, the quality and depth scores, in my opinion, and I believe the way it should be done is the average of the breaks that are scored. Okay.
Yeah.
Your impression of the breaks that you scored, that's what you give your quality points to and your depth points to. And you should always spell those out to the audience before you do your math.
Okay.
We got a 1.4 for depth, 1.3 for quality. Boom. Then you write it down in the book, and then you get your calculator out and add it up. And you need to do that. And the only way you get good at judging is by judging. And knowing the rules, following the rules, and as they told us in judge school, stay in your lane, follow the law, follow the rules, throw your motion out the door, everything. You have to be impartial. You have to call what you see, and as you interpret the rules, how they were designed to be scored. And that's how you have to judge. And you got to have good eyes. Yeah. I think A.J. Gasparini requires an eye exam for the finals judges. He's been doing that. And that's a great idea.
It is.
I've had judges in my yard that couldn't even see the kit.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Rich remembers the guy. He goes, they're over there, Don.
Yeah, I had to tell him where
and they weren't that high.
It was really embarrassing.
Yeah, but I mean, so
Rick got so upset he went in the house.
I had to go downstairs.
I can't even watch.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, I can't see him. Because that'd be me right now, right?
Yeah.
Because I told you that's how bad my eyes are.
Yeah, don't ask Rich to judge.
No.
You'll get zero.
Yeah.
No, but this guy was like, I can't see him. He goes, I can't see him. I said, they're over here. I go, and I thought, oh man, Rick got ripped off for a couple of really nice breaks,
Yeah.
But you got to follow the damn rules.
Yeah. And what is quality to you?
What's that?
What is the quality to you? Like what are you judging for quality?
What I did when I judged the World Cup, and I've judged a lot. I've kind of haven't judged lately because I've been there, done that. I'm not interested in judging much, and because I just like to watch spin. I hate counting anymore. I mean, I'll be straight with you. I just like to watch hard spin, and it's hard to go, oh shit, I was supposed to count that. You know? And so when I was judging the World Cup, an H pattern pigeon was a 1.5 for quality. All right, and a minimum depth was probably 10 to 15 foot. That would have been a 1.0, 1.1. And I don't think I scored anybody over a 1.6. Would have been an average of a 30 to 40 foot kit.
Mm-hmm.
And
1.6, see?
Yep. And so, you know, I've been fortunate to have my kits scored 1.8 for depth. You know, and you know, that kit's averaging probably 60 foot on the breaks. You know, for a 1.8. And so, what's phenomenal? What's a 2.0? That's the thing that you could never get.
No, I don't think so.
You should never, if a guy calls a 2.0, I mean, sure, that should be your goal to try to get a 2.0, but holy crap.
That would be no mistakes at all, period.
Yeah.
That's
On every break.
On every break.
It just can't happen.
Yeah.
It's just not, that's not realistic. You know, it's
That's
not
why,
realistic.
That's why getting back to the 1 to 1.6s. I think that.
Yeah, it's,
that makes sense. That makes sense because it'll limit to you the best to be realistic, which is a 1.6 would be, you know, realistic.
The big number.
So that's my response to that question, Jerry.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering because I've heard that quality also means the elevation they're flying, the kit tightness, the sensitivity. So quality means quality of the roll.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Quality of the roll in the brakes.
Yep.
Okay.
Not what you see when they're going up or coming down.
Yeah.
It's in the brake.
My next question, you already answered it, is calling out the multipliers right away or after the calculation of the score. That's.
I call the brakes. I call them out.
Yeah. Nice.
You know, I had a guy. I judged in some interesting neighborhoods over the years, and I've had guys yell, "That was a 3/4 brake," you know, and I called 6, you know, or whatever.
What is your thoughts? Yeah.
You call them out because that's how you educate people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know what? That's how I like to listen. Some people say, "Well, you got to be a scriber," but man, you know, I mean, if you got the guys around you, just hey, man, that was a nice 7. I would have given them a 9, but 3 of them were late on the roll, you know, or something, you know.
Yeah. So wings
make you kind of feel better of what you're thinking, you know.
Heine Biker had a 20 bird break in front of 40 people. I called it a 19. Why? Because I'm chicken shit? No. I saw one pigeon wing switch it.
Wow.
And I called it a 19.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, you know, they're all looking at me like, "Oh, you stinking yank! That was a damn full break."
Yeah.
It was. It was a 19 pigeons doing it right. Anyway.
Being like realistic on. Okay, so you know you got a quarter turn with some nice depth. That's pretty simple to judge, you know, like you know 1 to 3, whatever, you know which one, you know how many go, you know what I mean? But when you got half turns, 3/4 turns, I mean, realistic, are you gonna count every single pigeon, or are you estimating of what you think that went all at once? What? Because that, to me, sometimes, like, running into a kit like that, because I see it in my birds, and sometimes I'm like, damn, I don't even know how many went, but I know there was a lot, you know? So what's the best way to calculate that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was judging down in Utah one year, and Jay Starley flew a phenomenal team like he did a lot. And I was – he had a solid 15 bird break. I mean, there was 30 plus in the, you know, just 30, just, you know, you got Starley birds, you know how they roll.
Oh, yeah, nice.
5 birds left going like, shit, where did they go? You know, it was the cleanest 3/4 break I ever called. You know, I'll never forget that. And Doc Ryman came up to me and said, "You called the 3/4," like, because I've been pretty tight the rest of the fly. You know,
it was a real 3/4.
It was a 3/4 with 5 birds left. I mean,
Yeah.
I was still judging. I came up.
You know, I gotta say something real quick.
Yeah.
Or I'll forget.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let me talk for just a second. When I won the World Cup, I had my birds. I started a little too early, and I had them almost overdone. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, you know. But 3 days before the judge got there, I flew the kit, and I was in my own backyard by myself watching this kit. And I didn't judge them, but they were on fire. And what they were doing was 3/4 breaks, and all I did was count the breaks. I looked at my watch and I said, okay. So I counted 60 breaks, and they were all 3/4 breaks. I mean, clean.
Yeah.
Separation. Stuff that people, right now, I can hear everybody going, all right, sure.
Yeah.
But this was the real deal, man. And I'll tell you what, I
And
only
he
saw.
hasn't been smoking any weed either today.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was 60 breaks. So I just called 60, I just counted 60 breaks, and it was right at 20 minutes. So that was 3 times a minute. And they were plenty. People say, oh, they can't get back to you that fast. But when your bird break and shoot straight to the other kit, I mean, just right now, boom, they're in there. You get a little quiet time, and then they're setting up, and then boom.
Yeah.
If you get 3 every
Well,
minute.
the 3/4 break birds don't have to go back to the kid.
That's
They
right.
are the
They
kid.
are the
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
The other ones, them more or less,
Yeah.
you know.
No, and that's what I say though too. You know, I mean, when you have a 3/4 break and you run into a kid that has that separation, man, you know, okay, you have time to kind of register it in your mind. But if you got a kid that's 10 feet,
Those are the worst kits to score.
how do you know? I mean, like how would you determine that was a 3/4 break? I don't know how to do that, man. That's hard. That's difficult right there.
1-0 if they're 10 foot. If they're minimum, you get a 1-0.
A 1-0,
And
yeah.
those are the worst kits to score. Them short working
Yeah.
birds. They're over frequent. Boom, 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 boom. It's
Yeah.
like holy crap.
Yeah.
That's why I was glad there was no judge in the yard when I saw it, because there was nobody that believed in it. What would the score be? 60, 30, 3/4 break.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been so stupid that I'm glad it didn't happen, because I would have been embarrassed, because I saw it happen.
Well, that kit was a phenomenal kit. I was in Hawaii, and our good friend Gary Barris, who lived in Deer Lodge, Montana, he's one of those guys. He came in second in the national at least one time, I know. And he's one of those guys you'd ask him, so Gary, how's the birds looking? He goes, no, they're not going to do much. They're not going to do much. And so then you get down there and they kick your butt, right? They put up a hell of a fight. So he was really one of those guys, right? So I'm in Hawaii, and I asked him, I said, so how's your kit looking, Gary? And he goes, Rick, I think I finally got a kit that'll going to take it. Well, then they went to Rich's house. And his regional score was probably twice of what your World Cup score
Well,
would have
it was
been.
24-40.
24-44. And Gary Barris called me. He says, oh, my God, I have never seen a team of
He
pigeons.
judged it.
Yeah, he was just blown away. And then when Eldon judged, they were good, but they weren't like they were for the
Nothing like
region.
that.
Nothing
No.
like that.
What was
So
your
it was
what was your multipliers on that score?
1-6.
1-6. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, this fellow here has flown some phenomenal
Nice.
teams. So,
What is your guys' understanding of a waterfall?
They start and then they just keep dribbling out, waterfall.
something
I mean-
you get wet.
Yeah, I mean,
Bit of instant breaks. If I had my choice, that's what I like to see best, because I don't like waterfall at all.
okay, better yet, this is a question like, okay, when you have a break and they bust, do they need to exit that break before scoring the other break? Like, if it's another, like you say, you got 5 birds, they break, and then right after that, another 5, 7 come right after that, and they're not exiting the break yet. Would you follow the 7?
The birds are big enough to be able to determine that. You know, 10-footers, you're not going to be able to determine that.
No.
You got deeper pigeons, real Birmingham roller pigeons that can go 20, 30 foot or more. You can score that. The rules say you can score that. 5 birds or more, rolling union from the kit coming out. And I guess the big definition is what's an outbird. An outbird is a pigeon that's not part of the kit.
Yeah.
So pigeons returning from a roll or still in the roll, all right, if those 5 or more roll in unison, I believe, and the rules state it, you have to score it. And I did that when I judged. I always did that. And I remember Jerry Higgins, I was judging Sam Williams' kit. And it was the first kit that Jerry Higgins was there and watched. And he goes, well, I'll be damned. Somebody's finally judging by the rules. And so I'm like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Now, are those kits that I want to have in my yard? No. I'd rather have kits that break big, like Rich is talking about. When I judged the World Cup in 05, Joe Bob Stuka's kit was on fire. But it was nonstop. Boom, 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 just like you're talking about. Nonstop. Half turns, 3/4 turn, 5-bird break. Holy shit. It was a lot of work to score that kit.
Yeah.
Just an example, get to Heine Bikers. Quiet, 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 teamwork, set up, boom, regroup. Quiet, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's what we like.
You just said the magic word for those big braids. Set up. Bam.
Yep.
Because the waterfalls, they don't have that quiet time. They
It's about quiet time, I think. I love seeing quiet time because that means they're thinking, man, they're going to bang them out.
Yeah.
But spinning in unison is what we're trying to get our goal here. That's what we're breeding for. Spinning in unison.
Yeah.
And but those 2 kits were night and day different to the eye. I was so blown away behind this kit, I had to have some of them. I wouldn't quit till I got some of them, right?
Yeah.
He says, you don't need pigeons for me, Rick. You don't need them. I've seen your birds breed an old bird kit, you dummy. And but it was such a difference, and I witnessed that same teamwork on numerous other kits in England, and in I saw another Hank Neiman in Holland flew. His kit was phenomenal until Sparrowhawk came in there and shut him down. But those are old bird kits. And one guy in South Africa flew a kit of George Mason birds that flew down the end of the street, set up, boom, regroup, flew back over our head to the other end of the street, boom. It was the damnedest thing you ever seen, Yeah. And unfortunately, had a bird roll and hurt itself and was out of the kit all the time, and it drug another bird out with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, teamwork.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe is the ultimate that you want to get.
Yeah.
But you have to judge, but you have to follow the law. As the judge, you got to follow the law.
Yeah.
And that's the way the rules are written. That's the
I'd like to change the rule on that particular about the 5 bird and 5 more.
Yeah.
It looks like a club something.
Yeah.
And we have some good discussions about this.
Oh yeah.
And if it's just 5 birds, yeah, it looks like shit. But if you got 5 birds and then 10 go, you can score that, but not if they're short rolling pigeons. That's a big mistake that a lot of judges do, is that they'll score them short pigeons. 10 foot is nothing.
Yeah.
I
like them to eliminate the 10 foot and just go 20. That'd be badass.
You want to see, as a judge, you want to see separation. So there's no question the birds were committed in the roll.
Yeah.
They walked far enough to where you could see that, they're rolling properly, and then boom, they're done, exit, and go back up. Unless they go or right or left, and they're out of the outbird.
Now,
do you think?
Oh, sorry about that. One more, real quick. Have you seen a short bird, but when it comes into the roll, it pauses while it's spinning, then drops? I mean, I hear that. I mean, I don't know how. If so, what would that be duration?
No, a guy named Terry Pitts bought some birds from Hugo Bloss back in the mid '80s, and he had a blue check with white flights on one side, that was one of those. It's the only one I've ever seen. And it would just hum in space. I'm like, holy crap. Did you see that, Terry? He's like, yeah. You know, and it wasn't all the time, but they're there, Jerry.
Yeah,
they're there.
but you ain't gonna get a whole 10 birds to it, you know. So what was gonna be your question, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm pretty kind of passionate about the understanding the rules and kind of everybody being on the same page so everybody kind of knows what to breed for. To me, it seems like the rules in place actually benefit the better breaking birds like hyenas, the bigger breaks, because of not like 10 birds to 15 score more, 15 to 19 and the 20, etc. So it seemed like if there was like a loophole, the shorter kits or the popcorn breaks were winning over the cleaner kits, maybe a change. Do you feel that the rules as written the way they are, do you think they benefit a popcorn breaking team or a cleaner breaking team?
I personally think the rules are fine the way they are. That's my opinion.
What do you think, Rich? Do you think the rules that are in place will benefit a popcorn breaking team, or do you think the person that has the bigger breaking cleaner team has the advantage in the World Cup?
I really don't know. I like the way the rules are. The only thing I don't like is that what we're talking about, where 5 birds go, and then another 5 will go, and then 5 more go, and then pretty soon you got birds everywhere, and are they going back to the kid? Or it's like I don't like that. It don't look good to me. I want to see something that looks good to my eye. Especially now I can't see very good, so I like to get them, so I can see them better. But that's just my, it's in the rules. It's right. The rules are right. I almost got in an argument a couple times over it, and I just decided to keep my mouth shut, because I like what's clean. I want to see separation and instant breaks. That's what I want to see, and that's what I get, and that's why I do it. I breed for that,
Do either of you guys feel like that in between breaks, the birds would have to return all the way back to the kit before you could score another break? Or do you think that breaks can be scored a clean break, the birds come out, and as the birds are returning, you could score another break?
Well, a pigeon isn't out if it's returning from a roll. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
If you get 5 birds that come out, and if they roll deep enough to where it takes a while to get back to the kit, you as the judge, and hopefully your scribe can help you. If you have some questions, say, hey, keep your eye on that bird and see if he's making his way towards the kit. If you read the definition of an out bird, it pretty much clears that up, Gabe. And the pigeon is making its way back to the kit, and then another 10 come out of that kit.
Yeah.
It's not an outbird.
Yeah, I think what comes into play to helping that confusion right there is having that depth, man. Because if you don't have that depth, I mean, I don't know how would you even have that circle through your thoughts and say, like, what I mean, if this one busts and it's already coming and it's too short of you can't. Yeah. But if you have depth, then you can see that kid going, that the break birds going back while the other ones come in. I mean, it gives you that time to think.
Yeah, and with birds with that depth, it seems like they'd be at a kind of a disadvantage if they had to, roll 30 foot and make it all the way back. But at the end of the day, we'll play by the rules and the way they are.
Nice.
What you want, ideally, like that kid I flew in 2019 was a hell of a team, and they were good because of it wasn't they just were a good team, kind of like Rich's World Cup kit. And John Vandenbroek's talked about this numerous times. So when that kit would break 3/4 or half turn breaks, the birds that didn't roll would loop back and hook up to the ones that rolled. They were such a team.
Nice.
And that's how those deeper birds maintained their position in the kit. They were a hell of a team, and so you can have good teams of deep rolling pigeons. You can, and we got to make sure we never change the rules to disadvantage that.
Right.
Yeah. Makes
You know,
sense.
Ron told me when I was starting learning, he was like, he pounded that into my head about when the bird's done rolling, if they go out the side or the back or something, you don't want that. You got to have them go straight to the kit. And every time he'd see me, he would bam, bam. And finally, I got this 101 hen. His number was 101. And I said, she does it all the time. So I brought her in and I put her on every cockbird I had. And now all my birds do that. They don't take off out the side or out the back or up or down. They just stay, boom, right on the kit when they're done rolling. That's what I'm happy about.
Yeah, the Barry Shackleton pigeons were known for that too. And slingshot, right back to the kit.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
And when I was there in England in the '87, we were up in the burrow. I didn't take my camera with me in the burrow. I was done. I was sick of filming. I wanted just back.
Yeah. I get that feeling.
That.
I get that feeling.
Yeah. And so we're at Steve Wheatley's house. I'll never forget it. And he had his kid up, and there was a black white flight badge mixed tail, just doing a phenomenal job, and like a bullet, wow, right back to that kid. And John Huntington says, "That's probably a Shackleton pigeon." And I looked at Steve. I says, "What's that black badge?" He goes, "Oh, that's a shack. It's a birdie
Yeah.
shack."
Those are nice traits to have when somebody got something good to say about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And but it was so uncanny, He had a kid up with that one bird. It was the only one he had from Barry Shackleton. It was right back to the kid like nothing.
Yeah, nice.
And don't lock yourself in, Rich. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have one last question, but I'll wait till Rich gets back because what I'm gonna ask. Well, I'll ask it right now, but and after this, if Gabe, you got anything else to say, we just, we've been on here. Damn, 2.5 hours, I guess.
Having a ball, man.
And I'm telling you right now, if I could keep on going, you know what I mean? But my son's birthday, my wife is cooking and everything, so I kind of.
That ladder's full.
I don't know.
Okay.
From the time that I think that we could be here forever. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have to say it's cutting it short. You know what I mean? But
yeah, go ahead with your question, Jerry.
No, I was just gonna say, a word of advice to someone that is starting with the birds and has their goals, or their goals are to one day be very competitive. How to approach that. Like that. Those are one of the things that I have, like a lack of time, I would say, by trying to figure things out on my own, and you know what I mean, and not into. I don't know. I think for this sport, it would be a good way to somehow get a word of advice to bring the newcomers and kind of show them a faster way of doing things or something. You know what I mean? That could help them out. But
well, there's no shortcuts.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I think you made a comment here on one of the social sites recently that spend the money and buy the best pigeons you can is a quick way. And I never believed that money could buy success, right? Mm-hmm. But Ron Phelps, the guy that Rich got a lot of his pigeons from, he went around. Here's a man with means. He went around to the top flyers in the West and sat there and picked pigeons out of the air and paid big money for those birds. I mean, he wouldn't quit until he got that pigeon. He knew what he wanted. He took those pigeons home. Within 2 years, he was winning. I'm like, son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. It can be done.
Yeah, he picked them out of the air.
Yeah, he picked them out of the air. Yeah. He knew what he wanted, and he wanted to win the World Cup. Yeah. That was his goal.
Yeah.
And so it can be done.
No, and one of the things, excuse me for interrupting, but it wasn't, I mean, I didn't necessarily mean it like actually even having to pay, but go out. Like I've been to Ohio. I've been to many. I drove all the way to Utah to visit Jay Starley, and that wasn't cheap. You know what I mean? But I could have taken it easy and be like, I met him at the convention and he had some birds in there. I could have put a bid for $50 or whatever. You know what I mean? And it would have been cheaper, but. Go out of your way, whether it's expensive or not. That's kind of what I meant.
Get out what you put in. You get out what you put in.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, you got to be dedicated.
Yeah.
You've got to just read every book, read every article, get around, see the top flyers, what they're flying, how they handle their birds. I mean, if you really, you just don't import pigeons from South Africa or wherever. I mean, or England, or Ireland, whatever. You got to get out and see what works in your country, and what's out there, and see what works for those people, and that's what it takes. You're looking at two really crazy dedicated pigeon guys,
Psychos,
and we're looking at two crazy pigeon guys. Okay?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're sick.
That's what we always say.
Yeah, we're sick.
Rick goes, we're sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, I'm gonna make me a shirt saying we're sick. You know what I mean? I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna send you guys a shirt. I promise.
Yeah. No, so you have to be driven. A new fancier has to be driven.
Yeah.
If you just want to keep pigeons and fly them and enjoy them, that's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But if you want to be competitive, you got to make it a priority to get out and see who's winning, see how they're winning, and why they're winning, and talk them out of some pigeons, and try to emulate them. But there's no shortcut. Other than Ron Phelps bred horses and trained horses, so he was an animal trainer, so he knew how to do that, and so there is some natural talent you got to have to do well. I mean, look at Heine Biker.
Yeah.
Look at Monty. Those guys kicked everybody's ass,
Yeah.
And they still do. Look at Ritter. Ritter's an animal trader.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know something? They're trying to do that this day and age is going to be a lot different, because between now and back when he's talking about, a lot of people got really good birds and they're serious. So it's a lot harder to win,
Now,
I think, now than it was, because there was just not as many people that were sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there is a lot more now.
Yeah.
They just
And which is a good
obsessed.
thing for
And
our
it's
hobby.
cool. It's a hobby,
Keep our hobby healthy.
We're getting better birds. It makes you sharpen your pencil. You can't just stumble into winning like.
It's nothing like flying in a region that you always have the same guy winning than to fly in a region where it's competitive. Like your guys' region, you got
look at our region. We got Don Olette move there. Holy shit!
Hey, you got Tony and Canada are the same region, right?
Yeah, Kenny Billings.
We got good flyers.
Jeez, man, that's competitive. That's what I want here in Arizona. You know what I I mean?
Yeah, you got a great.
You got to sharpen your pencil, man.
Good spot.
You got to sharpen your pencil.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, hey Jerry, I know we've been out here 2.5 hours, Hayes.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like about hour might be up. I think, boy, that's a long ass hour.
Yeah, no, I told Gabe that. I go, it's gonna be like 2.5 hours. It's gonna seem like it's only an hour,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else from you, Gabe?
Good.
Oh no, I'm good. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, nice. Well, I appreciate you guys being a guest here. Gabe, thank you for coming up on here and backing me up on this one. I needed your help for sure.
We appreciate you, Jerry.
Yes, what you're doing for the hobby is
It's
phenomenal.
awesome. We
Thank
love
you.
it.
I appreciate you guys, and ain't no stopping it. We're going forward, and the guests that are tuning in today, thank you for joining in. Do me a favor, subscribe, like, so that we could keep this going. Check out the Patreon. On the Patreon, we got the documentaries. I mean, you guys seen them, right? They're pretty good, right? Would you say?
Oh, hell yeah.
And it's a lot of hard work for me to dish out to the hobby. It's a lot of work, but you know what? At times I do need some help. So the Patreon helps out with the traveling expenses. So I mean, I really do need as much help, and you know, like next week I'm driving to San Diego, go hang out with John Jones, and that's part of the money from the Patreon is gonna take care of that little trip over there. I'm gonna film it and share it with everybody. So please
You know,
help.
Jerry, you're on your way, buddy.
Yeah. You know,
You're sick. You're sick,
I'm
bro. You're
sick.
sick.
Oh, hey, we're gonna be sporting out some sick shirts.
You are gonna be successful.
Yeah.
All this dedication you're doing and this sharing with all of us what you're doing,
People
it
appreciate
shows
that.
your passion,
Yep.
Yeah.
your passion you have, and it's so nice to see this.
Yeah.
You
No.
know,
And then this
Kudos.
is a way to help us all out. Be competitive. Bring back a title here in the States or anywhere, wherever you're watching, around the world. Use this information to better your skills and take that World Cup over there your way. You know what I mean? It could help us out in many ways.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
But,
we've enjoyed the shit out of it.
Oh yeah, it's been great, Jerry.
all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, guys.
All right.
And now applause.
Good one.
Applause.
All right. Yep.
Bye.